conviction rate has led some to question its existence. However, the complexity of investigating and prosecuting the worst crimes in the world are at odds with achieving rapid results. Other shortcomings, like the total dependence on countries to arrest and transfer suspects, or major nations not being part of it, can't be overlooked. Which brings us to the US. If it were to sanction the whole institution, then the ICC's ability to function would be at risk. Whether that happens or not, the ICC needs to adapt while also safeguarding its independence. The number of cases may be small, but its wider impact is immense. This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producers were Louise Clark and Baratu Ibrahim, editor Tara McDermott, and technical producer Toby James.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Minus 10 right now at the Forks. Going to warm up to 1 today and be mainly sunny, so a lovely day ahead of us overall. Let's still say hello to the wonderful crew behind the glass this morning. Abby Adiemi is our studio technician as well as our studio director this morning. And Kevin Nipatebo is our YouTube producer. Also, a big, warm good morning to Heather Wells at our CBC News Center. And she's in now with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Yes, and again, another day with tariff talk. A Winnipeg-based tire manufacturer says Donald Trump's tariffs have already started to hurt. Evolution Wheel ramped up shipments to U.S. customers before the tariffs hit. The founder, Derek Hurd, says almost all of his business comes from the U.S., and he says he is now going to have to eat those extra costs. Winnipeggers can expect to pay more on their sewer and garbage bills this year. The city unveiled a set of rate increases that could raise annual fees by hundreds of dollars for each household. Now, Mayor Scott Gillingham calls the increases too high and says he will work with other levels of government to find ways to lower those rates. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. All morning, we are going to be talking a lot about the impacts that these tariffs are having on Manitobans. We're going to hear from a number of businesses. We're also going to plug you in this next half hour to what President Donald Trump said last night. He spoke to Congress, and we're going to have an expert on to analyze exactly what he says and what he said about his plans are with tariffs moving forward. Also coming up this weekend, and it's quite timely as well, it's the Love Local Manitoba event, and they're going to share what foodies can look forward to at this year's event and talk a little bit about what it's like to run a business that focuses entirely on selling local goods, especially at this time in our history when everyone is focused on trying to buy as Canadian, or most Canadians, I guess you could say, are very focused on trying to buy as Canadian as possible. That's coming up after World Report.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
You might know the Canadian comedian and actor Mae Martin from their stand-up or from their podcasts, but did you know they're also a songwriter? Mae Martin has just released their debut album, and they'll be here to tell you all about it and what it's like to stand on stage when no one's laughing. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The tariff battle between Canada and the U.S. appears headed this morning to the World Trade Organization. Canada's representative is asking the WTO for consultations with Washington. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to reach out today to U.S. President Donald Trump. Janice McGregor joins us from Ottawa. And Janice, the confusion is piling up right along with the tariffs.
Marcia, it's tough to pick through the chaos and find facts here, but let's sum up what's out there so far. After Canada's counter tariffs hit, yes, President Trump jumped on his social media account, vowed retaliation for Canada's retaliation, but nothing has escalated so far. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, hit the airwaves, hit the phones, trying to smooth things over, but before too much heat burned his administration, suggesting on U.S. TV that there's a negotiation on now and there's room for a deal and Canada might meet them halfway. Here's how Lutnick spun it for our colleague Katie Simpson last night.
Canada made us an excellent offer, and we're talking to the president.
What do you mean by offer? What do you mean excellent offer? What does that mean?
More work on the border.
Like any
more
specifics?
work on the border. No, lots of details. We're going through it together, and the president's thinking about that.
Lutnick told CBC News there's been lots of talking, but it appears the federal representative that he's been actually back and forth with is Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc. They had a short conversation in the afternoon. LeBlanc told our CBC News special last night that they planned to speak again last evening.
We're not interested in some sort of reduction of the tariffs. We want the free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico respected, and we'll continue to work with the government of the United States on issues once the tariffs are lifted.
As the Globe and Mail first reported, CBC News confirmed, Lutnick reached out to Ontario Premier Doug Ford as well. That call's been described as tough, with Lutnick trying to persuade Ford specifically and Canada generally to back off. Ford refused, and like LeBlanc said, until there's no tariffs, there's no negotiation. As the Prime Minister said, this is a clear violation of NAFTA. Canada intends to prosecute that case. A new deal is not possible while this fundamental violation remains.
So who else is talking today?
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly has a call scheduled with Secretary of State Marco Rubio around noon today. We'll see if that line-in proves effective. But if all the deciding happens in the Oval Office, the call we're really watching for here would be one with Trump himself. A government source familiar with yesterday's First Minister's call told CBC News that Trudeau told premiers he's hoping to speak to the president today, but things are fluid. That could change.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Among the Canadians bracing for the worst in the face of U.S. tariffs are crab fishers of Newfoundland and Labrador. They harvest hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crab. Nearly all of it goes to the U.S.
Crab harvesters and processors are working out prices for this year's catch. And that just got a lot harder to do with a 25% U.S. tariff on Canadian goods. Paul Grant with Beothic Fish Processors says tariffs will hit everyone's bottom line.
For a load of crab, you probably had to pay, $60,000, $65,000 extra in tariffs. If you have a load of lobster meat, it could be over $300,000.
Last year, 95% of the province's snow crab was exported south. Now the province is searching for new buyers in the rest of Canada, Europe and Asia. Provincial Fisheries Minister Jerry Byrne calls the tariffs a betrayal from Canada's closest ally.
Never since the 1992 moratorium has such a challenge been put before us.
But he thinks the U.S. market for Newfoundland seafood is elastic and believes people will still buy it. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
U.S. President Donald Trump is also threatening reciprocal tariffs on countries that try to fight the U.S. action with tariffs of their own. This will have an impact on Canada, but other countries, such as India, are also being targeted by Trump. Ishan Garg has more from New Delhi.
We are getting first reactions from Indian industry bodies who say reciprocal tariffs on Indian exports could put thousands of workers here out of a job. The gems and jewelry industry, which exports more than $11 billion worth of goods, say they are expecting new import duties to be between 5 to 20%, and that could cost the industry millions. The wider impact on the Indian economy could be up to $7 billion, according to analysts. At the same time, the main federal opposition party, the Indian National Congress, is actually criticizing the Narendra Modi government for not pushing back enough against these tariffs. After Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US last month, there were expectations of relief, but just days after that, President Donald Trump singled India out, along with a handful of other countries, accusing them of unfair trading practices.
And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%.
While President Trump made this comment, India's Trade and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is in fact in the US to discuss a potential trade deal that India hopes could help persuade President Trump to either drop or at least reduce the tariff burden on Indian exports. Ishan Garg for CBC News, New Delhi.
And the U.S. president used last night's speech to a joint session of Congress to declare America is back.
The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. Never been anything like it.
Donald Trump spent much of his hour and 40-minute speech praising his accomplishments. He also vowed more swift and unrelenting action, including tariffs. The CBC's Richard Madden is in Washington. And Richard, many Canadians are worried about the Canada-U.S. trade war. What did Trump's speech signal about tariffs?
Yeah, the president signaled he's not backing down and digging in on those punishing tariffs against his allies. Trump admits they may cause some economic pain, but insists his plan will bring back American manufacturing. Listen.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Now, the president's speech was part victory lap, touting his election win, ripping into critics, but it was also a rallying cry for his slim Republican majority in Congress to unite behind his vision and pass his agenda, whether it's tariffs, culture wars, dismantling government, or foreign affairs. Trump has moved at breakneck speed in his first 6 weeks in office, but behind the scenes, though, Republicans have reportedly been calling the White House, worried of the economic damage these tariffs would cause in their districts. Markets have plunged in reaction. So after Trump's speech, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick may have tried to ease those concerns, telling CBC News that maybe a deal is in the works to reduce them.
Richard, how are members of the Democratic Party reacting to Trump's speech?
So they face a unique challenge. Democrats are essentially leaderless and hold no power in Congress. So many of them held signs in protest. One congressman was booted from the chamber after repeatedly interrupting Trump's speech. Afterwards, Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin responded on behalf of the opposition, accusing the White House of taking a wrecking ball to government, and warned Trump's tariffs will have severe economic consequences.
His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers.
Also worth noting, Slotkin acknowledged Americans want change, but she also urged her party to stop stoking outrage and instead focus on issues and take action.
Thank you, Richard.
Anytime. Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. For years, cancer has been thought of as a disease affecting the very old or the very young. But researchers say there is steady increases in some cancers among young adults between the ages of 18 and 39. As Jennifer Yoon reports, some healthcare providers are making that growing need a priority.
How do they feel?
In a small auditorium at Toronto's Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, a half a dozen millennials sit, learning how to deal with hair loss during chemotherapy. Cancer in this age group was once an anomaly, but increasingly that's changing.
So it's across the board. All cancers essentially are going up in the younger population.
A recent study in the Lancet Medical Journal suggests some cancers are 2 to 3 times higher in millennial Americans compared to baby boomers. Toronto colorectal cancer surgeon Dr. Shadia Shmala has seen this firsthand. Cancer specialist Dr. Abha Gupta says young adults with cancer also have distinct questions, like can they freeze their eggs? That's why she created a program tailored for young adults at Princess Margaret.
Just wanted to ensure that there was a program dedicated to address these types of unique needs.
She wants resources like this made available everywhere in Canada. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. On our main page, a fight between a Canada goose and a bald eagle is one of the top stories. That is at cbcnews.ca. There are photos. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Minus 10 right now, heading for a high of 1 today. But get this, Sunday, I know it's far away, but if you need something to look forward to, the high is 10 degrees. Coming up this hour on the show, Measles has been in the news with cases exploding in Texas, but also with many cases closer to home. Dr. Raj Bardwaj will join us for a discussion about how this very infectious disease, one that doctors had hoped might be relegated to history books. We'll learn more on our regular health and medicine segment coming up later this hour. But this half hour on the show, we're going to go south of the border to talk about President Trump's address to Congress in the wake of the first set of tariffs. What did he say about how he will move forward? But first, at 6:11, let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's business owners are welcoming tariff relief measures announced by the province. Businesses affected by U.S. tariffs will be able to defer paying some taxes. Tyler Birch, founder of Barnhammer Brewing in Winnipeg, says cash is already tight, and being able to keep some of that cash right now would be what he says really great. So we'll hear more from him. As well, PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich is blaming the NDP government for the loss of a license to drive tourists to see polar bears east of Churchill. Manitoba's wildlife branch rescinded the license for Dowdrich's Lazy Bear expeditions. Dowdrich and MLA Obby Khan are running to be the next PC leader. Voting hasn't started yet, but Dowdrich says his candidacy is behind the wildlife branch decision. We'll hear more from him in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Let's say hello to the crew this morning. Kevin Nipatebo is keeping the YouTube page looking good. You can check us out on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. And Abby Adiemi is our studio director and studio technician and keeping an eye on the weather. Hello to you.
Good morning, Curry. How's the running this morning?
You know what? I didn't even bother going on the sidewalks. I just ran on the road. I'm pretty sure it's, don't report me, but I think it's illegal, but it's the only way to get, get here without falling.
With that freeze overnight, sidewalks can be treacherous this morning, so take care. You don't want to slip and fall. Just be careful. Today we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds across the province from the north all the way down south. We should see some breezy conditions in many regions. A mix of sun and clouds also in the forecast. For conditions for Winnipeg and surrounding areas, right now Winnipeg, it is minus 10, some cloudy conditions we're seeing. It's going to start sunny today, then we'll see that mix of sun and clouds make that mix by late morning. It gets breezy at some point. We then warm up to 1. Tonight, a few clouds will definitely be hanging by, then that would take over after midnight with a slight chance of flurries also in the forecast after midnight. It gets breezy at times and temperatures will be dropping to around a minus 8. Just to sum it up, Corey, across the province today, it's going to be warmer and breezy down south. We're looking at all those +1s and 0s in most regions with snow and colder conditions in the northern part of the province. But I'll tell you, Winnipeg is going to be more like mild today. We're looking at a bright start. Some clouds will roll in and then we warm up to 1 degree. Right now it's minus 10 in the city. You see anything in traffic, it's still building up. It's early right now. Give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, for Winnipeg foodies, Love Local Manitoba's culinary event is the place to be for years. The annual food and beverage celebration has been the place to enjoy the best of our province that it has to offer. And next Saturday, Love Local will be celebrating 10 years. It's taking place at the Victoria Inn on Wellington near the airport. And to learn more, Peter Fair, the co-founder of Love Local Manitoba, joins me now. Hello there, Peter.
Good morning, Corey. How are you?
Good. So I do want to talk about this event, but we're kind of in this moment right now where everyone's focusing on local. I know on top of this event that you got coming up, you also run a shop at St. Vital Mall that sells completely local things. I'm curious, how busy are you these days?
Yeah, so definitely the support has been increasing these days, so we're super grateful for that. And yeah, we have Love Local Manitoba. It's a retail store in St. Vital Centre where we carry over 600 Manitoba-made products, so it's exclusively Manitoba-made. And we work with 100 different suppliers there, so we're just grateful for the support from the customers to support our local customers during these days for sure.
Do you have people coming in specifically and saying, "I'm here because of the tariffs that are going on"?
Yes, yeah, and our staff definitely had some interactions with customers saying like, "Oh, you guys just must be like really busy these days." And so, yeah, it has been the traffic's definitely been increasing, and people are definitely coming to the stores just because of the news that we're listening to lately. Yeah, for sure.
Now to the event going on, have you also noticed ticket sales up for that as well in terms of people being like, hey, here's an event that supports local, I'm in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so definitely, I mean, Manitoba is always a little bit last minute in buying tickets. So we have seen the tickets are up a little bit from last year, but we still have a ways to go. So, but I know Manitoba will show up, so we're just hanging tight for that. So, but yeah, people are definitely, there's been chatter online about our event and Love Local in general, and so yeah, we're thankful for the support. So for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, this isn't just a new thing. So that you came up with this idea 10 years ago. What were you envisioning back then?
We never had visions that it would actually be what it is today. So I also own another food brand where I actually make a gourmet food product. And I was at a farmer's market selling my product, and I was talking to a neighbor vendor, and we just figured, there's all these awesome vendors around us. How about we just get a few of us together and have a good evening of sampling some food, and let's invite some friends to come and enjoy and bring in some music. And so that was our initial idea, was just to have a little small gathering of food people and just to have a good time together. And it's amazing where it's gone in 10 years. So it's exciting to be here 10 years later.
How many people attend now versus people, in the first year you did it 10 years ago?
Right. So I think our first year we had 100 people maybe come, and now we're at like on average around 500, and we've had up to 1,000 people come. So depending on the year, it all depends between 400 and 1,000 that show up. So,
wow.
So it's definitely seen a little bit of growth.
And in terms of like tenders and stuff like that, how many or vendors, how many people are there this year?
Yeah, so we have just over 40 vendors, and it's a good mix of food, beer, and wine. So we have some of the microbrewers coming, some of the distillers. We got a coffee roaster, and there's condiments. We got meat, different sauces, spreads, cookies, all kinds of goodies. So it's food and beverage. It's all there. So.
And is it so? How can you describe the vibe when people come at the event?
Yeah, I always like to say it's kind of a fun, classy evening out. So you don't like have to go rent a tux or anything to show up. But I feel like people dress up a little bit and come with their coworkers or friends. And sometimes I've heard of people having birthday parties at our event. And so you just come and enjoy the evening, and it's super fun. There's live music. We've got a couple of local musicians coming. They play kind of busking style. So we have a violinist who's from Winnipeg, as well as Anne-Marie Willio, who's an accordion player. She'll be there just to serenade our guests throughout the evening as well. So you can sip, sample, and shop throughout the evening. And so you get a free mocktail when you come by a local vendor, and just enjoy the evening sampling and discovering what's new in Manitoba for food and drink.
How much are you hoping to seize this moment as a business owner right now in terms of this? I think it's always kind of been, I think, a drive to be local in principle, right, for a lot of people. But now there's this kind of extra, I guess you could say, political element to it these days. Yeah. What kind of discussions are you having as a business owner with your staff, with business partners about how to make, see this moment right now that we're in?
Yeah, and I think like what it comes down to is I think just making conscious small decisions. I think it's not, I mean, there's a lot of global big political things happening, and a lot of us don't play in that field, and we might feel out of control of what we can do. But I think as a consumer, it's all in the small decisions every day that you can make. I mean, it's not possible to buy everything local, but to think consciously where your goods are coming from that you're purchasing, and then try to maybe make some small changes in your buying habits to support someone local instead of someone that's not. So I think it's just all thinking consciously about your everyday purchasing decisions and seeing where your products come from, and then maybe just making a small little shift in how you're thinking about where your goods come from, and choosing maybe local over a non-local supplier for something that you typically buy. So I think it's just, being conscious in the small decisions.
And how does it work for you personally? I know, like, seeing it's kind of handy for you because you kind of are surrounded by all these local products every day. Right. But what's your? Do you have any tips for like everyday things in terms of what you eat, what you wear, what you buy, in terms of how to make life easier, in terms of how you live your life as someone who owns a business that's all about local products?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I just think of the community I live in. Like, I live outside of Winnipeg. I live in Steinbach, and so just to think of like, who is in my community, like who's my butcher, who's my baker, and just think of those kind of things, like things that you eat every day, and then maybe supporting those small shops more often is kind of how I think about that.
Are there still challenges that you find in your own life, like in terms of trying to find that local thing? Is there like either it's closed or something that you're like, oh, I want to, but it's just there's still this kind of gap in the economy that's hard to buy local. And
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's definitely true. Like there's sometimes a convenience factor of getting something can be more convenient, possibly either way, but. Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I know how to exactly answer it, but
I mean, it's always those small things, right? That you probably don't even pay attention to, right? You'll pop into like a 7-Eleven and get something, and then it's
for sure.
and it's American made or something like that. You don't even think about it, probably, right?
Yeah, but I think in this moment too, everyone's becoming more conscious of that. So we're reading labels more and just and then thinking more consciously about that. So I feel like I'm on the same road as everybody else. So and then cost is often a factor too, right? So sometimes. To buy local goods can sometimes cost more, so there's a bit of a sacrifice sometimes in that too. But
right,
so it's a tough situation sometimes.
And before I let you go here, in terms of people are interested in attending the event coming up, what do they need to know, and where can they go to find more information?
Yeah, so lovelocalmb.com is our site, and we got all of the information there for the event, and there's a link for tickets there as well, and there's bundled deals as well. So if you bring your friends, you get a bit of a discount, and there's unlimited sampling for our event. So it's a super fun evening to bring your friends and have a great evening just discovering and supporting what's new in Manitoba for food and drink.
And I know we've also got 2 tickets to give away. And what we're going to do is we're going to get people to email us, win@cbc.ca. And we're going to ask you to tell us about your favorite local product. And I know maybe for you that might be hard because I know you make local products and that you're surrounded by them every day and you sell them. So it might be like asking you to choose your favorite child. But I'll ask you, Peter, before I let you go, favorite local product, or like one that maybe is at the forefront of your mind right now.
The one that comes to mind right away is because I make a line of coffee syrups in my other business. And so there's a coffee roaster that I'm somewhat partial to in Steinbach. They're called Stone City Coffee Roasters, and they actually work right next door to where I am. So they're the first ones that pop to mind. But obviously, I love all of our vendors. So I want to not exclude anybody.
Message received. Yeah. Well, Peter, thanks so much, and all the best with the event.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Have a great day.
You too. Peter Fair is the co-founder of Love Local Manitoba. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary at the Victoria Inn Hotel and Convention Center this next Saturday, March 15th. So not this one, but the one after from 5 to 9. Like I said, we have 2 tickets to give away. So all you have to do is email us, win@cbc.ca with the subject line local, and you can tell us about your favorite local product. We'll choose a winner at random and announce it on the show tomorrow.
A really thin computer led to a big PR problem.
Oh boy.
A seasonal candle fired up consumers with some questionable imagery. And that's not the correct URL printed on the packaging of a children's doll.
Uh-oh.
Recorded before a live audience in Toronto, Wicked Brand Fails of 2024 on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
The stories that matter.
Canada will be responding
as they happen.
We must put Canada first.
At home and around the world.
We don't need the products that they have.
And what they mean to you. For news you can trust.
We're coming to you live.
Stay with CBC News.
Still to come here on Information Radio, as you may have heard, measles have been in the news with cases exploding in Texas, but also many closer to home, including here in Manitoba. There's been 5 cases confirmed. Coming up at 6:50, Dr. Raj Bardwaj is going to join us for a discussion about the very infectious disease and one that doctors had hoped might be relegated to the history books. We're going to learn more on our regular health and medicine column coming up at 6:50. But right now, though, here on Information Radio, U.S. President Donald Trump has made his first address to Congress since being reelected. He spoke to the House and Senate, both led by Republicans. And according to the White House, the theme was renewal of the American dream. In his lengthy speech, Trump highlighted all he's done so far and promised more action.
6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country.
Story Hinckley was watching, and she is a national political correspondent with the Christian Science Monitor. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So what were you thinking as you listened to the address last night?
Well, I was really struck by how it's clear Trump takes his November win as a mandate, and that's exactly the word he used, mandate. It's noteworthy to him that not only did he win, but he won big. He won the popular vote in all 7 swing states. He talks about his win this past November as being historic for the country. And secondly, I thought it was noteworthy that he was addressing Congress in the Capitol, a co-equal branch of government that he's pretty much steamrolled since arriving back in Washington. His speech, which was the longest presidential address to Congress in modern history, really was a laundry list of how much he's done without Congress. I mean, through the Department of Government Efficiency, billionaire Elon Musk and Trump have been canceling federally appropriated dollars, which are the job of Congress to appropriate. And then at the same time, he gave Congress a long list of items that he would like money for, things that he would like codified into law, and really giving Congress a to-do list as they try to pass a new budget by next week. And finally, I'd say that in his first big presidential address, we also saw Trump do something that Trump does really well, which is produce an event. He responded to the audience, he improvised, he trolled the Democrats, he introduced guests when trying to make a point, he signed an executive action. It was really a Trump event through and through.
What do we know about how Americans are feeling about the Trump presidency so far?
Well, when he came into office, his approval rating was about 8 points higher than his disapproval rating, according to polling averages. But that has dropped to an almost 1 point gap now. There's still a really big partisan divide within the approval ratings. A Gallup poll from February found that 68% of Republicans are satisfied with the way things are going, compared to only 5% of Democrats who say the same. We know that there is some grassroots frustration among Republicans. During a congressional recess 2 weeks ago, Republican congressmen and women and senators held town halls in their districts and heard from a lot of angry constituents who are upset with the level of influence that billionaire Elon Musk has had on the president and his objectives. And so it'll be interesting to see if that continues to tick up, particularly as Americans feel more of an economic brunt from his ongoing tariffs.
And speaking of those tariffs, yesterday, of course, as many of our listeners know, Canada was hit with the first set of tariffs on our goods crossing into the U.S. So what can you tell us about how the president addressed this yesterday evening in his speech?
Right. So the speech came the same day that Trump announced the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And he made news last night on this, announcing that April 2nd is the day that reciprocal tariffs will go into effect. But, Trump was elected in part on a promise to bring down inflation and prices in the U.S. And tariffs and a trade war are not going to do that. So it'll be interesting to see if or how his polls change in coming weeks. He didn't sound, as of last night, as a president who's going to back off on these tariffs soon. He told farmers that they may have to, quote unquote, bear with him, which is a reference to the tariffs he implemented during his first term. He said there will be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that, kind of warning the American people of the effects that they might soon feel with their wallets. But again, if we circle back to the big point he made at the beginning of his speech, that he was given a mandate, and the biggest mandate, arguably, that he was given was to bring down prices.
Well, Story, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks.
Story Hinckley is a national political correspondent with the Christian Science Monitor. We reached her in Richmond, Virginia. Well, stay tuned here. We're going to hear how the markets are reacting after the first full day of tariffs from the U.S. on Canadian imports. That's with Christopher Ramlakan in our business report coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -10. We're going to warm up today, a high of 1 this afternoon under a mix of sun and clouds. And we begin in Washington.
America is back.
President Donald Trump, in an address last night to Congress, defending the trade action he's taking against Canada, Mexico, and China. You can hear more of what he told Congress coming up on World Report. But a Winnipeg-based tire manufacturer says Donald Trump's tariffs are already hurting. Evolution Wheel ramped up shipments to U.S. customers before the tariffs hit. Founder Derek Hurd says the company now is going to have to eat those extra costs. Hurd says almost all of his business comes from the U.S.
It's been harder and harder to come in and look at everybody in the eye every day, wondering what we're going to do. When people look at you and you're their source of income for paying bills and paying mortgages and putting kids in school, it's it's hard.
Now, Manitoba has announced tax deferrals for businesses impacted by the tariffs. They'll have the option of deferring payments of both provincial health and education levy, commonly called the payroll tax, and the retail sales tax. Premier Wamp Canoe says it'll help them keep more cash on hand during this trade war. Now, a tax expert says there should be a better way to provide relief to Manitoba businesses affected by this trade war. Evelyn Jacks is president of Knowledge Bureau.
That will certainly help with cash flow planning in the short term, but it is likely not a good long-term strategy either for the government or for the small business.
Businesses can also opt to defer the health, as I mentioned, the health and post-secondary levy. Jack says that may help some, but it's not an option as too many small businesses are already exempt. Winnipeggers can expect to pay more on their sewage and garbage bills this year. The city unveiled a set of rate increases that could raise annual fees by hundreds of dollars for each household. Mayor Scott Gillingham calls the increases too high and says he will work with other levels of government to find ways to lower rates. Niall Harney is a researcher at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. He says the city needs to invest in its sewage and waste collection systems.
The raises we're talking about are really significant, and I would really hope that the city and the province can find a way to share some of the cost here so that the city isn't taking all of this, as well as the federal government.
The Water and Waste Committee will discuss the proposed rate increases at its meeting next Tuesday. Manitoba has revoked the polar bear viewing vehicle permits for a Churchill ecotourism company owned by a candidate in the PC leadership race. The province's wildlife branch told Lazy Bear Expeditions it no longer has a license to take tourists to see polar bears in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. The branch says the bear population is declining and is too stressed out. Lazy Bear owner Wally Dowdrich says it's unfair.
Churchill's biggest, best resource is healthy polar bears, and that's a discussion for Churchill and our tourism industry to have, not to arbitrarily pull permits away. Just my permits, by the way, nobody else's.
Dowdrich received those permits in 2020 when the PCs were in power. He claims the NDP government is behind the decision to take the permits away. A man who pleaded guilty to abducting a teenage girl as she walked her dog in southern Manitoba has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Hercules Nicholas Chief forced the 16-year-old into his truck in an isolated area south of Landmark in 2019. The girl was in the truck for about 8 minutes before she was able to jump out and run for help when the vehicle slowed down. A sentencing decision says after that incident, the girl said she became an overwhelmingly anxious person and lost her sense of trust in people. It took years for police to identify Chief as the culprit until fingerprint evidence led to a break in the case. The judge noting Chief was exposed to alcohol and drugs in utero, one of the several factors diminishing his responsibility for the crime. The winter road to Puckatawagan is open for the season after being delayed for 2 weeks. People like Vaughn Jorgensen used the opportunity to take that 4-hour drive across the ice to Flin Flon to stock up on food and groceries.
Stores are too expensive up north, so it's easier for us to access grub in Flin Flon. Like meat, hamburger, chicken, pork chops, stuff like that. It's cheaper out there to meat products.
The winter roads are expected to remain open until the end of March. Puckatawagan is about 700 kilometers north of Winnipeg. Well, the struggles continue for the Winnipeg Jets.
Morrissey, low shot. They score! Morrissey with the drive from the blue line. It appeared to hit an Islander. There's
scores a power play goal, and it's 2-1.
Josh Morrissey in the second period on TSN as the Jets lose their first road game, falling 3-2 to the New York Islanders, but it is Winnipeg's third straight loss. Jets head coach Scott Arniel says his team is in a bit of a funk, but he says there is light at the end of the tunnel.
For us, it's making sure that we're defending well, and if we got to win these games 1-0, we'll have to work to do that. But at the end of the day, I like that effort. I like the way we played.
Winnipeg now heads to Philadelphia to face the Flyers tomorrow night. You can read more about that Jets loss and find other news from Manitoba. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather, before you go, so we got this kind of contest going on there. We got 2 tickets to give away to the Love Local event coming up in a couple of weeks. And we're asking listeners to just email us win@cbc.ca with your favorite local product. And I'm noticing a theme. We've got like dozens already of emails. It's booze.
I see beer. I was going to say beer.
Beer, chocolate, cheese, and coffee, which are all wonderful things.
They really are. Well, coffee, coffee is not sourced here, but roasted here, yes.
Yes, lots of roasters.
Yeah.
I'll give you just a list. So 1919 beer from Little Brown Jug is what we heard from Stuart Thomas. We've got New Bothwell cheese from Diane Heather is what she is saying. And we've also got Negash coffee, as well as what a couple people have said as well. And Morden chocolates, another one, and Dark Horse cider as well, out of Morden. So there's just a couple of local products. Keep them coming. I don't know if anything comes to mind for you at all, Heather.
Oh, there's so many, right? Like, Shea-Ban ice cream.
Right.
That's amazing. Yeah, lots of great coffee shops. Talk about roasting coffee, but local coffee shops that are amazing.
Yeah, no shortage of local roasters. So keep those coming. Win at cbc.ca with the subject line local. Tell us about your favorite local product, and you could win one of 2 tickets to the Love Local event coming up next Saturday, where you have till the end of the show to tell us. We're going to tell people tomorrow who the winner is. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Abby Adeyemi, good morning to you. You have a look at the weather. Hi.
Before weather,
Yes.
Corey, you don't have the beeswax in there. There's a beeswax candle. I love it so much, and a lot of local producers make beeswax, and even our own May here makes beeswax.
Right. Okay, it's so cool. Exactly.
That's like something local that I love also.
A lot of cool stuff to make here locally. Thanks there, Abby. What are you seeing weather-wise?
We're looking at a mix of sun and clouds across the southern part of the province today, with cloudy, breezy conditions to come with that. And then the story is different up north. We're seeing snow. It could get about 2 to 3 centimeters in most of the regions, from Thompson all the way down to Churchill. But let's look at the Red River Valley region at this point. Winnipeg at this time, -10. It is clear outside. The day is going to start sunny. Some clouds will roll in by late morning. We then warm up to 1 later in the day. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Altona, Morris, all the way down to the U.S. border. We're seeing temperatures hover between -9 and -11 at this time. Clear skies we're seeing there. Also a mix of sun and clouds warming up to 1 degree. In the western part of the province, Brandon and surrounding areas hovering around -14, -15 at this time. The high for that part of the province would be -1. Light winds will become breezy at some point, and then tonight you drop to about -11. For the Parkland region, Dauphin sitting at -8. Clear skies you're seeing there. Expect a high of 1 degree today. Light winds will come your way with a chance of flurries tonight. The Interlake region will see Gimli, is seeing Gimli around -17 at this time. Partly cloudy we have in that part of the province. Your high will be around 0. Some light winds would come with that. Then from the central part of the province, the Par, Flin Flon, all the way up there, we're seeing temperatures around -8 at this time. Cloudy skies, some light snow already being spotted here and there. Highs will be around -1 and 0 for today. Up north, Thompson currently at -11 and cloudy. Snow is expected today. Thompson should see about 5 centimeters accumulation once this system passes through that region. High will be around around a -1. And then further north in Churchill, we have temperatures still in the 20s, -20, -21 for that region. Light snow falling also this time. Expect 2 centimeters of snow, and then your high will be around -18. Though the wind chill is still something for folks in the Churchill region, still near -28, -29. And then tonight, plus that 2 centimeters you saw during the day, you're going to see additional 2 centimeters again tonight into the overnight period. So across board, southern part of the province will have highs around 0 and 1, breezy conditions, while further north in Churchill, temperatures will stay well below 0 with snow expected throughout the day. For Winnipeg right now, it is -10. We're warming up to 1.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Just in the last 3 minutes, Abby, we actually got 3 emails, all people mentioning La Cochina chips in St. Anne's. They're made here. Yeah, if you see them in stores, people would actually kind of forget about that. But thanks to Bobby, Diane, and Matthew for that email. Keep them coming. Win at cbc.ca with the subject line local. Tell us about your favorite local product. Next up here on Information Radio, first the commute, 204-788-3093. Pretty quiet commute so far, but let's now talk about those tariffs. Crystalie Ramlakan is here with the Business Report. Hi there, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Corey.
So how are the markets reacting after the first full day of tariffs from the U.S. on Canadian imports?
Well, stock markets in Canada and the U.S. fell for the second day. Markets saw somewhat of a bounce back in the afternoon led by tech, but that failed to reverse overall losses. And the declines have nearly wiped out all of the gains in the U.S. since President Donald Trump's election in November. So those gains were built largely on hopes for policies from Trump that would strengthen the U.S. economy. But experts say this kind of volatility is here to stay amid continued uncertainty over what's going to come from the Trump administration. Colin Szynski is the chief market strategist at SIA Wealth Management, and he says investors hate tariffs.
The markets seem to recognize that in a trade war, everybody loses. Tariffs throw sand in the gears of the global economy, and that at the end of the day, it impacts everyone, and it impacts both sides. And there really aren't winners and losers. It's just everybody kind of loses.
Now, Canada has announced 25% retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of American goods, including food, alcohol, clothing, cosmetics, furniture, lumber, and more. And investors expect the trade war to have a significant slowing effect on not just the North American economy, but the global economy.
I do understand there is a bit of a sign of reliefs from these tariffs.
Possibly. So U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the Trump administration could announce a trade deal today with Canada and Mexico. Here's what he told Fox Business yesterday.
It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff, but I think he's going to figure out you do more and I'll meet you in the middle some way, and we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome, the president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Now, auto and bank stocks jumped in post-market trading following those comments, and Canadian heavy crude strengthened. And the comments are the first public signal that the president may be wavering. But Trump doubled down on his tariff agenda in his address to Congress last night. And earlier in the day, he gave little indication he was willing to consider exemptions. And he even said moves by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to retaliate with countermeasures would cause U.S. reciprocal tariffs to increase. Now, businesses, Democrats, and Republicans are urging the president to reconsider his plan. They say costs could go up for American consumers, and key sectors such as agriculture and automobiles are going to hurt. So U.S. auto executives say taxing imports from Canada and Mexico is unfair because their supply chains and factories are concentrated within North America. And the Anderson Economic Group says car prices south of the border could jump $12,000 due to the tariffs.
And a U.S. firm has agreed to a deal to bring ports on both sides of the Panama Canal under American control?
Yes, so a Hong Kong-based conglomerate has agreed to sell its controlling stake in a subsidiary that operates ports near the Panama Canal to a consortium including BlackRock. So, yeah, this effectively puts the ports under American control after Trump alleged Chinese interference with the operations of the critical shipping lane, which the Panama government has denied. So the deal is valued at nearly $23 billion US, including $5 billion in debt. And the deal will give the BlackRock consortium control over 43 ports in 23 countries, including ports located at either end of the Panama Canal. Other ports are in Mexico, the Netherlands, Egypt, Australia, Pakistan, and elsewhere. And the transaction still, though, has to be approved by Panama's government. And, about 70% of the sea traffic that crosses the canal leaves or goes to U.S. ports. Now, the U.S. built the canal in the early 1900s to facilitate the transit of vessels between its coasts. And Washington relinquished control in 1999 under a treaty, but Trump and his supporters have complained about the fees that ships are charged to use the waterway.
And what's happening in the markets this morning?
So in Europe, stocks are higher right now. So Germany is up, the UK is up, France is up. And in Asia, markets are also mostly higher. So Japan is up, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is up. Oil is down $1.18 to 67.08 US per barrel. Gold is down $1.20 to $2,915.50 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.03 of a cent to 69.5 cents US.
Thank you very much, Krista Lee.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
That's Krista Lee Ramlakan with the business news. Well, next on the show, Montreal-based singer-songwriter Ayadze releases her new album called Healer this coming Friday. And here's the pre-release single. This is I'll Keep Dreaming.
Carrying an amount of trouble, and I know for sure. I've been in darkness and I've been trying too hard, too many times. I've been walking with my shot and I cannot control all the thoughts running through my mind. I feel like I am losing my soul. Quelque chose de solide, convoiter la montagne du haut de la colline. Je raccroche pas, Dieu est au bout de la ligne. Il sait que je me dépasse quand je refuse de trépasser. La nuit le refuge de mes peurs, chaque matin abrite un espoir. Je veux rêver d'un avenir meilleur, qui aura raison de mes cauchemars. Garder le cap sur l'objectif pour que la lumière s'allume. On a les lettres, on a les chiffres, le résultat du calcul. Je projette l'image jusqu'à ce qu'elle se matérialise sous les yeux des non-croyants. Les pensées sous ma casquette, j'en prends soin pour qu'elle puisse me tirer vers l'avant. I've been walking with my shot and I cannot control all the thoughts running through my mind. I feel like I am losing my soul. I'll keep dreaming all that I want. I'll keep dreaming.
From Montreal's Ayadze, that's I'll Keep Dreaming. You can catch her new album Healer coming out this Friday. Well, next here on Information Radio, measles is making a comeback in the worst way. More cases, more outbreaks, more hospitalizations. An outbreak in Texas has recently resulted in the death of one child. And closer to home, an outbreak in Ontario has been underway since October. The virus has also spread in New Brunswick and here in Manitoba, where 5 cases of measles have been confirmed in southern Manitoba, all connected to that outbreak in Ontario. And if you're curious, in Ontario, since the start of the year, over 140 cases have been reported. That number far surpasses cases recorded over the previous decade in the province. In total, about 101, just over 100 cases were recorded over the previous 10 years in Ontario. So a big surge. For more on the situation in this country, CBC's Marcy Marcusa spoke with Dr. Raj Bardwaj yesterday. He's an urgent care and emergency department doctor in Calgary.
Good morning, Marcy.
So we always need to have the reminder, once again, especially in the light of what I've just said, what exactly is measles?
Yeah, Marcy, it's a very contagious viral infection. It's most dangerous for kids under about 5. And it's a viral thing, right? So you get fever and cough and, maybe some pink eye type stuff. And then a rash that typically starts on the face. It spreads down the body. The virus can live on surfaces and in the air. It can hang in the air for like a couple of hours. And it's very contagious. It's estimated that if one person has measles, over 90% of the non-immune people around that person will become infected. And it's frustrating because, this day and age, it's mostly a preventable illness. Vaccination gives about 97 to 99% infection protection. So that means, even if you're exposed to it, there's a 97 to 99% chance you won't catch it. And if you don't catch it, then you're not at risk for all the potential complications. And it's really the complications that we worry about. In the States last year, 40% of people with measles had to be admitted to hospital for treatment. Now, those aren't old-timey stats. Those are people who were admitted in the age of modern medicine because they were very sick. They needed medications to support their body to fight this infection. They needed oxygen, sometimes a breathing machine. About 1 in 1,000 people with measles will get inflammation of the brain called encephalitis, which can cause permanent brain damage. And around 1 to 3 out of 1,000 people with measles will die from the measles infection itself. And like you said, sadly, we've seen that happen already with a child in Texas. And there was also an unvaccinated child who died in Hamilton last spring. And then there are also sort of longer-term, non-immediate complications of measles as well.
What do you mean by non-immediate complications?
Yeah, so we've known for decades, we've noticed that, when a child has measles and then they recover, even if it's a mild case, for about the next 5 years, statistically, they actually have an increased risk of dying for the next 5 years after their measles infection. And for a long time, we didn't know why. 2019, scientists made a breakthrough. They confirmed that infection with measles causes a sort of immune system amnesia. So even after a mild measles infection, you lose about 1/3 of your pre-existing disease-specific antibodies. So infections that your immune system has already fought off or learned about from vaccination, it forgets how to fight them and it has to start fresh. And that is what raises their risk of dying within 5 years or so of their measles infection.
Some people have said that it's not surprising that we're seeing measles outbreaks once again these days. What's your response to that?
I mean, I learned about measles in medical school. I have seen exactly one case of it in my career, and I'm not a young pup anymore. I hate to say, but it's only been a couple of months. We're into the 3rd month of 2025. We're seeing way more infections than we do in a typical year. So in 1998, measles was declared eliminated in Canada. That was a direct result of a successful, routine vaccination program. So every once in a while, a Canadian would travel outside the country to where measles still circulates, and they would bring a case home, or a traveler would bring a case into the country, but we would see sort of, a handful of cases throughout the whole country, and usually in unimmunized or under-immunized people. And so since 1998, there have been a couple, most of the time, maybe a handful to a couple of dozen cases, not outbreaks, of measles in the whole country. Since 1998, there have been 7 years where there have been 100 cases or more in the whole country. And now we're seeing that already in the first couple of months, of this year. That sort of lack of cases was because of herd immunity. You know how people say, well, if your lawn is healthy, then, you'll have a much less hard time with weeds because the lawn is healthy. It's hard for weeds to grow. Same sort of idea with herd immunity, right? If most people are immune, even if somebody drops some measles, into a population, then most people are immune. The measles virus can't catch on, so it can't keep spreading. But you need about 95% of people being immune. And so, a lot of people say, well, this is just isolated to pockets of willingly unimmunized people. But remember, first of all, we should still care about willingly unimmunized people, and we should try to minimize risk as much as we can. The other thing is we don't immunize for measles until kids are a year old. So all infants are at risk of infection. And the other thing is it takes 2 doses of the measles vaccine to give 97 to 99% protection from infection, not 100%, even in healthy vaccinated people. And on top of that, there's people with immune system problems, or they've had a bone marrow transplant or cancer, something like that, where they remain susceptible to infection regardless of their vaccination status. And then, for older folks, your immune system's memory does fade over time. So older folks might not be as well protected as we once thought.
So what are the options for people in face of rising infections about what they could choose to do?
Yeah, so you need to understand that you need 2 doses of measles vaccine to have full immunity. In Canada, a 1-dose vaccination schedule was introduced around 1970, and then a 2-dose vaccination schedule was introduced in around 1996. So you can make sure that you and your kids have had 2 measles vaccinations. So if you were born before 1970, we assume that you had measles, because it was just so common and so contagious. And you probably have lifelong immunity, but your immunity may have faded. So you could talk to your doctor or public health nurse about testing your immunity, or even easier, just going and getting a booster. If you were born from 1970 to the mid-90s, you probably only got 1 dose of vaccine. So again, you can talk to public health about getting tested or just going and getting a booster dose. That's what I did last year. So, and then if you were born or grew up outside of Canada, and if you're not sure if you had all your childhood vaccinations, again, it's best to check with public health and or your doctor and talk to them about personalized advice. Public health says that, also, even if you have had measles or had 2 vaccinations, if you're traveling outside Canada, or you're a healthcare worker or a post-secondary student or in the military, then you might actually need another booster dose. And this is the thing, this infection was declared eliminated in Canada in 1998. And it would be tragic if we couldn't say that in the future.
All right, Dr. Bardwaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's House Dr. Raj Bardwaj. He is an urgent care and emergency department doctor in Calgary. He was speaking with CBC's Marcy Marcusa. Well, at 6:58, let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg-based tire manufacturer says Donald Trump's tariff have already started to hurt. The founder of Evolution Wheel says almost all of his business comes from the U.S. Derek Hurd says it's getting harder to go to work every day and look at his staff as they wonder what they're going to do. We'll hear more from him coming up. As well, all of Manitoba's winter roads are now open for the season. The final one, the winter road to Puckatawagan, opened on Friday. We're going to hear from people who took that trip across the ice, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Still to come this next hour on Information Radio. She's an award-winning singer and songwriter and made heads turn when she sang the national anthem in 2023. We're going to speak with Julie Black for her Songs and Stories tour. She's in Winnipeg playing at the Park Theatre on Friday, and she joins us live at 7:40. Also, Canadians might face some financial uncertainty ahead. We're going to hear more from an economist about ways to prepare personal finances amidst these tariffs. That's all coming up here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. I'll see you after World Report.
Today on The Current.
I so often was questioning myself and my own functioning, but didn't really realize that that's what was happening.
A lot more adults are getting diagnosed with ADHD, some of them after seeing videos about the disorder on social media. Many find the diagnosis useful, but experts have doubts about how many people it's actually helping. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be trying again today to bring an end to the tariff battle with the U.S. He is expected to reach out to U.S. President Donald Trump in hopes of ending the conflict. Janice McGregor joins us from Ottawa. And Janice, the confusion is piling up right along with the tariffs.
Marcia, it's tough to pick through the chaos and find facts here, but let's sum up what's out there so far. After Canada's counter tariffs hit, yes, President Trump jumped on his social media account, vowed retaliation for Canada's retaliation, but nothing has escalated so far. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, hit the airwaves, hit the phones, trying to smooth things over, but for too much heat burned his administration, suggesting on U.S. TV that there's a negotiation on now and there's room for a deal and Canada might meet them halfway. Here's how Lutnick spun it for our colleague Katie Simpson last night.
Canada made us an excellent offer, and we're talking to the president.
What do you mean by offer? What do you mean excellent offer? What does that mean?
More work on the border.
Like, is any
more
specifics?
Work on the border. No, lots of details. We're going through it together, and the president's thinking about that.
Lutnick told CBC News there's been lots of talking, but it appears the federal representative that he's been actually back and forth with is Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc. They had a short conversation in the afternoon. LeBlanc told our CBC News special last night that they plan to speak again last evening.
We're not interested in some sort of reduction of the tariffs. We want the free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico respected, and we'll continue to work with the government of the United States on issues once the tariffs are lifted.
As the Globe and Mail first reported, CBC News confirmed, Lutnick reached out to Ontario Premier Doug Ford as well. That call's been described as tough, with Lutnick trying to persuade Ford specifically and Canada generally to back off. Ford refused, and like LeBlanc said, until there's no tariffs, there's no negotiation. As the Prime Minister said, this is a clear violation of NAFTA. Canada intends to prosecute that case. A new deal is not possible while this fundamental violation remains.
So who else is talking today?
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly has a call scheduled with Secretary of State Marco Rubio around noon today. We'll see if that line-in proves effective. But if all the deciding happens in the Oval Office, the call we're really watching for here would be one with Trump himself. A government source familiar with yesterday's First Minister's call told CBC News that Trudeau told premiers he's hoping to speak to the president today, but things are fluid. That could change.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Just hours after introducing the tariffs against Canada, Donald Trump addressed a joint session of Congress last night.
America is back.
The marathon speech went on for about 100 minutes. It was punctuated with cheers from Republicans and jeers from the Democratic Party. Many of them held small black and white signs saying false and lies. Democratic Congressman Al Green was ejected for heckling Trump.
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Trump's speech praised the accomplishments of his first 6 weeks in power, including his controversial tariffs. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick has more from Washington.
Republicans cheered President Donald Trump on while Democrats sat stone-faced as they listened to the lengthy speech. Trump began by boasting that he's accomplished more in the 6 weeks since his inauguration than most presidents get done in their entire terms.
There's been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country.
Trump has been operating at a dizzying pace, reshaping policy at home and abroad. On trade policy and the tariff war now underway with Canada, China, and Mexico, Trump doubled down on his decision to forge ahead.
We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer.
Trump claimed tariffs will make America rich again. And despite concerns that they'll make goods more expensive, he said he's okay with some disturbance in the economy. He complained that too much fentanyl is coming across the border, giving no indication of what more Canada could do to satisfy him. But on his way out of the speech on Capitol Hill, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told CBC News that Canada has made fresh offers to do even more on border security.
Canada has offered us an enormous amount, again, to do better. And I think we're talking to the president, and I think there's some room
to potentially drop the tariff rate from 25%, Lutnick indicated, not necessarily to drop the tariffs altogether. Trump called tariff a beautiful word in his primetime speech and told trading partners around the world who were watching to brace for more. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Washington.
And among the Canadians bracing for the worst in the face of U.S. tariffs are the crab fishers of Newfoundland and Labrador. They harvest hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crab, and nearly all of it goes to the U.S.
Crab harvesters and processors are working out prices for this year's catch, and that just got a lot harder to do with a 25% U.S. tariff on Canadian goods. Paul Grant with Beothic Fish Processors says tariffs will hit everyone's bottom line.
For a load of crab, you probably had to pay, $60,000, $65,000 extra in tariffs. If you have a load of lobster meat, it could be over $300,000.
Last year, 95% of the province's snow crab was exported south. Now the province is searching for new buyers in the rest of Canada, Europe, and Asia. Provincial Fisheries Minister Jerry Byrne calls the tariffs a betrayal from Canada's closest ally.
Never since the 1992 moratorium has such a challenge been put before us.
But he thinks the U.S. market for Newfoundland seafood is elastic and believes people will still buy it. Dwan Street is the head of the union that represents harvesters and fish plant workers. She says lobster, halibut, cod also will be affected, but wants to ease anxieties for workers.
Harvesters, I just want harvesters to feel confident that they are not going to bear 100% of the brunt of this. There's going to have to be a way that they're not the ones feeling the pain.
She's hopeful a low Canadian dollar may offset some of the tariffs. And amid all the uncertainty, in an industry that is more often divided than united, all sides say they want the fishing season to get going. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
For years, cancer was thought of as a disease affecting the very old or the very young. But researchers say there is a steady increase in some cancers among young adults between 18 and 39 years old. As Jennifer Yoon reports, some healthcare providers are making that growing need a priority.
How do they feel?
In a small auditorium at Toronto's Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, a half a dozen millennials sit, learning how to deal with hair loss during chemotherapy. Cancer in this age group was once an anomaly, but increasingly that's changing.
So it's across the board. All cancers essentially are going up in the younger population.
A recent study in the Lancet Medical Journal suggests some cancers are 2 to 3 times higher in millennial Americans compared to baby boomers. Toronto colorectal cancer surgeon Dr. Shadia Shmala has seen this firsthand, and it's not clear why.
That's the million-dollar question, and there aren't definitive answers.
For patients, too.
Why now? Why at this stage of my life?
25-year-old Cassia Taiwanek was diagnosed with leukemia last year. As she's been in bed recovering, her peers have gotten engaged, finished studies, and started careers.
I had that same momentum in my life in a lot of ways, and that sort of being put on hold.
Cancer specialist Dr. Abha Gupta says young adults with cancer also have distinct questions, like can they freeze their eggs, or how to disclose a cancer diagnosis while dating. But there isn't always a place to find answers. That's why she created a program tailored for young adults at Princess Margaret.
We just wanted to ensure that there was a program dedicated to address these types of unique needs.
Gupta says the demand for the program has doubled. She wants resources like this made available everywhere in Canada. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, Toronto filmmaker Bruce LaBruce and Cree artist Kent Monkman have each won a Governor General's Award in Visual and Media Arts. They are among 8 artists receiving a bronze medallion and $25,000. The prize recognizes their exceptional contributions to Canadian culture. The Canada Council for the Arts says its Artistic Achievement Awards also go to Montreal's Sandra Rodriguez and Vancouver's Jinmi Yoon, among others. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 189.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. This hour on the show, how are tariffs impacting independent businesses? Well, one Winnipeg clothing designer says she is still unclear. And coming up, we're going to speak with her about how this uncertainty impacts her. That's coming up at 7:50. Also, at 7:40, we're going to speak with Canadian R&B icon Julie Black. She's joining us live as she makes her way to Winnipeg on Friday for her Songs and Stories tour. Stay tuned for that conversation at 7:40. But this half hour on the show, with a tariff battle underway, many political leaders are warning Canadians they will feel the impact. We're going to dive into what this could mean for people's personal finance with economist Moshe Lander. That's coming up right here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. 7:11 right now. Let's take a look at news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba business owners are welcoming tariff relief measures announced by the province yesterday. Businesses impacted by the U.S. tariffs are going to be able to defer paying some taxes. Tyler Birch, founder of Barnhammer Brewing in Winnipeg, says cash is already tight, and being able to keep some of that cash right now would help. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich is blaming the NDP government for the loss of a license to drive tourists to see polar bears east of Churchill. Manitoba's wildlife branch rescinded the license for Dowdrich's Lazy Bear Expeditions to operate 2 polar bear viewing vehicles. Dowdrich and MLA Abhi Khan are running to be the next PC leader. Voting hasn't started in that race yet, but Dowdrich says his candidacy is behind the wildlife branch decision. We'll hear that story in our next local news at 7:30.
So, Heather, as you know, all morning we've been asking people to email us win@cbc.ca with their favorite local product, because we're giving away 2 tickets to the Love Local event in a couple weeks. And we've been getting a lot of like chocolate, cheese,
a lot of food,
chips, a lot of food.
Yeah.
And then one popped up in the inbox right now, all caps. It just says fish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they gave a shout out to all the Lake Winnipeg fishers for pickerel fillets. Simple.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, nothing better than pickerel cheeks, but also if you just fry up a pickerel fillet with just a little bit of lemon or lemon pepper.
Oh, you're making me hungry.
I know. My Guido used to bring in pickerel all the time. It was just like our fridge was always stocked. So thanks for that. Keep those emails coming. win@cbc.ca. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Abby Adiemi, keeping an eye on the weather. Not probably great ice fishing weather out there today.
No, not great ice fishing weather for sure, but we'll be seeing highs between -1 and +1 for the southern regions today. While the story is different, if you look up north, you're still seeing that purple there. We're looking at colder air with snow affecting the northern parts of the province. But for Winnipeg right now, -11. It is clear outside. We do have a bright and sunny start, but the clouds will be joining the party later this morning. A bit breezy at some point. We then warm to a high of 1 degree today. Tonight, few clouds at first, and then it's going to turn mostly cloudy after midnight with that small chance of flurry. So you might see some white stuff on the ground when you wake up tomorrow morning. Still a bit breezy. Temperatures dipping to about -8 at that time. Across board, Corey, we're looking at a mixed bag across the province. It's going to be warmer and breezy down south, and then we have like snow 2 to 5 centimeters in some regions in the northern parts of the province, and the wind chill in Churchill is near -30 this morning. But for Winnipeg, we're starting sunny. The clouds will roll in later, and then we warm up to 1 degree.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
As for the commute, it's been pretty quiet overall this morning. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. If you are up around Gillam or on the kind of other side, Linden Lake, there, those highways, they are being reported Manitoba 511 as partly covered with some poor visibility. So careful if you're up north this morning on those highways. Other than that, down here, things seem pretty smooth. But if there's any new potholes showing up, anything like that, give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
To my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together.
That was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking directly to Canadians yesterday. He was laying out his view of the future given a trade battle between the United States and Canada. And he wasn't the only one giving a version of this warning. Other leaders and economic experts are suggesting now might be a good time to get personal finances ready for an uncertain future. Moshe Lander joins us now. He's a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at Concordia University. Good morning.
Good morning. For Abby there, I was listening to the weather before I came on here. I didn't hear anything for Flin Flon. That's like super important to me when I come on in Manitoba.
Okay.
To know what the weather is in Flin Flon. So before I exit out of here, I just need that information. We can talk about tariffs, so in the meantime.
Okay, I will make sure. Do you have a Flin Flon connection, or you just love Flin Flon?
Who doesn't love Flin Flon? How can you not?
It's true. It's beautiful up there. So moving to these tariffs here and the impacts they'll have on our pocketbooks. What are the biggest short-term financial impacts on Canadians from U.S. tariffs?
So contrary to what the president said, tariffs are going to increase the prices of American goods and services. So if you're an American consumer and you're buying stuff from Canada and you now have to pay more, the law of demand says you want less of that stuff. That means that production in Canada is going to fall. It means there are job losses that are going to happen. It means that we're going to see businesses that shut down, particularly things like the auto companies in Ontario are going to run out of stock and just decide that it's best to just suspend operations indefinitely. And we're going to have a recession in this country for the first time in a long time. And so all of those things are going to make things more difficult for all Canadians across the board. If you're a Canadian consumer, you now have to contend with counter tariffs. And so if you're buying anything that's on the hit list, those goods are going to go up, maybe not 25%, but they are going to go up in price. And so if you have the double problem of losing your job or seeing your wages cut because of the American tariffs, and you now have to pay more at the grocery store or elsewhere, you could really find yourself in a cost of living problem.
So how much should Canadians be concerned about inflation rising due to tariffs?
They should absolutely be worried. The president is flat out wrong. Tariffs increase prices. Maybe not 25%, but they do increase it. Now, the good news is that the Bank of Canada is committed to keeping inflation between 1% and 3%. And so they will do what they need to try and prevent inflation from getting too far out of control. For any cynics who say, well, what happened a couple of years ago when they allowed it to get up to 8%? That was because provinces still had varying degrees of COVID restrictions in place. I'm in Quebec right now. We had masking and social distancing longer than anybody else in Canada. And the Bank of Canada said it's not right that we try and slow down an economy when people can't freely move about the cabin. This time we don't have those restrictions. And so when the Bank of Canada meets next week, I think interest rate cuts are over for the time being. And if inflation really does become a problem, interest rate increases could be something that we start talking about again.
Big ones or little ones?
They always start as little ones. They don't become big ones until you've exhausted the little ones.
Okay. So what steps should Canadians be taking right now to protect their personal finances in case the situation does worsen?
Well, it's unfortunate because if you've waited to the last minute to decide that, hey, maybe we're in trouble, half the battle has already been lost. Trump was talking about this on the election campaign 6 months ago. It was just a matter of when. And once we saw that he was reelected 3 months ago, we should have known that this was coming. If you didn't take any of those precautions early on, all I could say to you right now is you have to prioritize what is important. If something is absolutely essential, you can't imagine doing without it, then you buy it from whoever gives you the biggest bang for your buck. And if that's an American company, hold your nose, but don't try and take patriotism and make your cost of living problems worse If it's something that's not essential, postpone it. You don't need it right now, so don't worry about it. And whatever discretionary spending you have left over can be allocated towards the things that you push as higher priorities. Have that conversation with your loved ones. Have that conversation in a transparent way. If you have children, you can involve them in it. You can make a game of it. You don't have to explain the details of how tariffs work or don't work, but you can at least say, look, maybe we can't take that trip to Disneyland, but is there somewhere else that we could go, or is there something else that we could do that would make up for it, and give some consideration, and at least they understand that they need to make economies as well.
And when do you kind of suspect these will really start seeing that impact on our pocketbooks? Like, could it be this week, or do you think it might still take a little while for it to, will it creep up slowly, or all of a sudden we'll be at the grocery store and be like, oh my gosh, a $20 avocado?
Yeah, so it does happen gradually. I think the companies are going to try and hold off as long as they can before they pass it on to their customers, because we don't know how long it's going to last. If you told me that this is going to last for 10 years, then I think you'd see the cost increases come along pretty quickly. But I think part of it, too, is knowing which goods are going to be subject to tariffs, and do you have substitutes available? Because you can avoid the tariff if you know that you have alternatives. If you don't have alternatives, then you probably are going to see it very quickly. The other aspect, of course, is that the tariffs only apply starting yesterday. So if goods have already made it into Canada prior to yesterday, they're not subject to tariff, even if they're on the tariff hit list. So the perishable items, the stuff that needs to be replaced pretty quickly, are the places where we're going to see it quickly. I think a lot of the food items that come from the U.S. are going to be the ones where we see it first. Weirdly enough, on the list is torpedoes. So for anybody who's in the torpedo market, you could find that you're going to pay a lot more too for whatever you need torpedoes for these days.
I stocked up beforehand, so I'm good to go.
Me too. I used the GST tax holiday to get all.
So, in terms of what steps should the federal government take to help reduce the impact on Canadians? I know we talked about interest rates. That's Bank of Canada, but in terms of the federal government itself, what should be done?
The Prime Minister said that he was going to make sure that there was support within EI and the existing welfare programs to help people that lose their job. I'm going to actually offer a little bit of unsolicited political advice to any Liberals that are listening out there. What you can do is you can take your gimmick from a few months ago, which was bad economics but good politics, and spin it now so that it's actually good economics. Suspend the GST indefinitely. As long as the tariffs are here, Canadians don't have to pay GST on anything, regardless of where it comes from. Lower income Canadians who have to spend all of their disposable income are going to get essentially a 5% tax cut. Higher income Canadians who spend a portion of their income are going to get that 5%, but only on a portion that they actually spend. If they want more 5% tax cuts, they can spend more of their money and help prop up the economy. And the Liberals can call it an axe the tax program. And so you neutralize the Conservatives and their axe the tax program. This is something that all Canadians can get behind, where the Conservatives don't have complete support for their axe the tax program.
And before you go here, Moshe, just so you can sleep tonight, Abby's here.
Moshe, we're tracking more like sunny skies and a mix of sun and clouds down south. For the south central, all the way up north, Flin Flon, the Pa, down, all the way down up to Churchill, we are kind of tracking more like a cloudy day for that part of the province, and there's going to be light snow sometime this morning. It's still going to warm to zero, so they're a bit like that benchmark of freezing and above freezing. So it's going to fluctuate between +1 and -1.
I can't do without going to Flin Flon, but at least I'm going to postpone it now to make sure that it's not that the cost changes, it's that the temperature changes.
It's just the temperature, exactly.
Thank you very much, Moshe.
Take care.
That's Moshe Lander. He's a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at Concordia University. Well, time now is 7:22. Got time for a bit of music. Some music from Winnipeg's Snacky. This is Could It Be?
Call on me ever anymore. Do you think of me? Still I can't be sure. I've been wasting time on my phone, wondering where you've been. Pre-plan used to call me boo, now I'm wondering who you've been with. Is there someone new? Dangerous games, played them all with you. Just can't let it go, feeling for something new. But could it be you could be everything to me? Yeah, could it be you
That's Winnipeg's own Snacky, with a question I think a lot of Canadians are asking themselves these days. It's called, could it be? Time now is 7:26. Time for morning sports, and Paul McGowan is in for Scott Regehr. Hello there.
Good morning, Corey.
So let's start on the pebbled ice. Another great day for Manitoba at the Brier.
Winnipeg's Reid Carruthers gets a win against Northern Ontario's John Epping, and it could be a pivotal win with how tight those Pool A standings are. Meanwhile, fellow Winnipegger Matt Dunstone needed an extra end, but he does get the win over Newfoundland and Labrador. And so Carruthers and Dunstone both in playoff spots, and both can secure those spots by winning out, something that Dunstone is clearly aware of.
We control everything in regards to our fate when it comes to this pool. We got a pretty exciting two-game day tomorrow, so it starts there, and then obviously we ended off with Brad. So I think we got to come out and we get New Brunswick in the morning, so got to start there, and then we can start looking at the playoff picture hopefully.
You heard Dunstone mention New Brunswick, which is his opponent in the morning draw. Carruthers is in action taking on Nunavut. The real match to watch, though, goes tonight. Dunstone against Carruthers. That one's at 8:30.
And now to smoother ice, where the Winnipeg Jets didn't really have as maybe smooth of a game.
No, they dropped their third in a row, 3-2 at the hands of the New York Islanders. There were some positives, though. The power play, which had yet to score since the Four Nations tournament, they get 2 goals. And to listen to the post-game comments, the team feels like it played a better and more structured game. Here's defenseman Josh Morrissey.
You look at that game today, I liked a lot of things that we did. Obviously, we want results, but I think if we play more of a game similar to that in a lot of areas, we'll continue to build. We're having a little bit of a hard time putting the puck in the net right now, and that hasn't been an issue all year, so I'm not worried about that. The goals are going to start coming, but the effort, the execution, compete, I thought was there a lot more frequently tonight, and we'll have to build on that in the rest of this roadie.
Now, if the Jets need inspiration for breaking out offensively, they could look west. The Calgary Flames just snapped their own 3-game losing streak in which they scored just 1 goal over 3 games, and the Flames then exploded for 6 over Philadelphia, which is who the Jets play tomorrow night. Also, the Jets still first place in the NHL, so hard to complain all that much when you're rolling like they are.
That's the thing, right? But now it's like the standard's so high, it's when there's a loss, we're like, what? Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Take it from a longtime Leafs fan that first place is a nice place to be sitting. I am unfamiliar with it.
We're just starting to get comfortable with it right now. It still feels a little bit weird, let's be honest. Let's stay with hockey. History being made in the PWHL.
Yeah, Canadian goaltender Anne-Renee Desbiens, very accustomed to dominating short international tournaments like the Olympics. What she's doing now is a little bit different. Last night, she helps the Montreal Victoire edge the Minnesota Frost 2-1, stops 40 shots in the process. But more impressive than that, it marks 13 straight games in which she's allowed 2 goals or fewer. That is an incredible run, and it's safe to say that Montreal coach Corey Chevery appreciates the effort.
If Anne can see it, she's going to stop it, and sometimes if she can't see it, she still stops it right now, which is a good feeling on the bench. I've never seen Anne that way in a shootout. If I was a shooter, I would be so intimidated going against her. It's just she's big, she sees everything right now, and she's stopping a lot for us. So when you don't have your best game, you need other people to step up, and Anne's been doing that.
That is the unique life of a hockey goaltender. Someone tells you, you look big today, and it is always a compliment. More PWHL action tonight with New York visiting Boston.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Paul McGowan with your morning sports. Stay tuned. Coming up just after the news, we're going to speak with the Canadian R&B icon Julie Black as she makes her way to Winnipeg to perform at the Park Theatre on Friday. That's coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's -11. It's a chilly start to Wednesday, but we're going to warm up. A high today of 1 with a mix of sun and clouds. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to speak with U.S. President Donald Trump today about America's tariff action. This as talks continue behind the scenes between Canadian officials and U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Here is Lutnick speaking last night on Capitol Hill.
I think there's going to be a discussion. Canada has offered us an enormous amount, again, to do better. And I think we're talking to the president, and I think there's some room.
Canada is taking its case against the tariffs to the World Trade Organization. Canada's representative will be asking the WTO this morning to open consultations with U.S. trade officials. Now, a Winnipeg-based tire manufacturer says Trump's tariffs have already started to hurt. Evolution Wheel ramped up shipments to U.S. customers before the tariffs hit. Founder Derek Hurd says almost all of his business comes from the U.S. and his company is now going to have to eat the extra costs.
It's been harder and harder to come in and look at everybody in the eye every day, wondering what we're going to do. When people look at you and you're their source of income for paying bills and paying mortgages and putting kids in school, it's hard.
Now, there is some tariff relief measures announced by the province yesterday. Manitoba business owners welcoming the packages. Businesses affected by the U.S. tariffs will be able to defer paying some taxes. Tyler Birch is founder of Barnhammer Brewing in Winnipeg.
Cash is already pretty tight, and increasing our costs, even in any way, will have a bad effect. So being able to keep some of that cash right now to soften the blow would be really great. And I hope that the payback is gradual or deferred for a longer period of time.
Businesses can choose to defer payroll and retail sales tax payments for at least the next 3 months. Premier Rob Canoe says further supports may be coming as the trade war unfolds. A Winnipeg researcher says thousands of households in this city could have trouble paying increased sewer and garbage rates. The city is proposing rates increases adding up to more than $300 for each household this year, and that could increase to more than $1,000 by 2027. Niall Harney is a researcher at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives.
StatsCan data show that about 5.3% of homeowners in Winnipeg are in core housing need, which is about 10,000 households across the city. We're not saying that every single one of those households would need support, but we would expect that a few thousand households across the city would need support to deal with this increase.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says the rate increases city staff are proposing are too high. He promises to work with the province and federal government to find ways to lower the fees. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich is blaming the NDP government for the loss of a license to drive tourists to see polar bears east of Churchill. Manitoba's Wildlife Branch rescinded the license for Dowdrich's Lazy Bear expeditions to operate 2 polar bear viewing vehicles in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. The Wildlife Branch says the polar bear tourism is oversaturated and it's trying to protect the bears. Dowdrich and MLA Abhi Khan are running to be the next PC leader. Voting hasn't started in that race, but Dowdrich says his candidacy is behind the Wildlife Branch decision.
What's happening is because I'm leading in this race right now, I believe the bureaucracy is being weaponized by Wab Canoe against me.
Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushy dismissing the allegation of political interference. He says the department is doing its job. All of Manitoba's winter roads are now open for the season. The final one, the winter road to Puckatawagan, opened on Friday. Several people headed out across the ice to Flin Flon and the Pas to stock up on supplies, and some others got a chance to visit Puckatawagan First Nation. Bailey Francois, who is originally from Puckatawagan, traveled home on the winter road.
I actually went there a couple days ago. I went for the winter games. I went and compete for the singing competition and the square dancing, and I participated in the parade.
This year, the road opened 2 weeks later than usual and will only stay open for a few weeks. Puckatawagan is about 700 kilometers north of Winnipeg. Well, Winnipeg can't seem to find the win column.
Ehlers stepping out again, shot, scores! They stick with it, and Nikolai Ehlers scores in the power play, and it's a one-goal game.
Nikolai Ehlers in the third period there on TSN, but it wasn't enough. The Jets lose on the road to the New York Islanders, 3-2 the final. It is the Jets' third straight loss. Coach Scott Arneal admits it's been tough.
We're in a funk right now when it comes to scoring goals, and teams go through these. You look around the league, lots happen in different spots, and just got to stay with it.
And Winnipeg's going to try again tomorrow night when the Jets are in Philadelphia to face the Flyers. And by the way, even with 3 straight losses, the Jets are still at the top of the league when it comes to points, about 2 points ahead of the Washington Capitals. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Hope you're not hungry, Heather, because we're still getting a lot of these emails about your favorite local products coming in.
It's all food.
It is all food. Lynn Scramita wrote in. She had a couple places to suggest Le Croissant on Taché, Tallgrass Bakery on the Seine. Apparently, it has amazing. Get this, bison tourtière.
Ooh.
Which sounds pretty good. Keep those emails coming. Win at cbc.ca. You could win 2 tickets to the Love Local event coming up in a couple of weeks. Just give us a subject line local, and it's been fun getting all these local things you forgot about. We also heard about Cranked bars. They're like an energy bar as well. So lots of cool stuff made right here in Manitoba.
Yeah, and it's not all food. I mean, there's Mondetta Clothing.
Yep.
Leonard Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's other things. But everyone's going to food. It's first thing in the morning, I guess.
It is true. It's just on our minds. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
And speaking of clothing, actually coming up at 7:40, we're going to actually hear how tariffs are impacting one independent business. It's a clothing designer, and says she's still unclear about what these tariffs will mean for her and the impacts that they'll have. So we're going to chat with her about what that means for her business coming up at 7:50. But right now, let's take a look at your weather now with Abby Adiyemi. Hello.
Good morning. We're expecting that sun to make its break anytime now. Some regions already seen it. Expect sunny and clear skies in the southern part of the province with some cloudy conditions rolling in later. While up north, a different story. We will see snow and colder temperatures. The weather tracking right now for Winnipeg, -11. Clear conditions we're seeing. Expect the sunny start, then the transition to a mix of sun and a cloud through the morning with light winds. The high for today, +1. Tonight, the skies become more cloudier with a slight chance of flurries, and then temperatures will dip to about -8 later. For Modern Winkler, I'll turn it all the way down to the U.S. border. Morris, you have similar conditions with Winnipeg. Clear skies at this time, heading for a high of 1. West, Brandon is sitting at -14. More of mostly cloudy conditions. Once this cloudy skies clear off, you should see a mix of sun and clouds today. High will be around -1 with light winds and becoming breezy. For the Parkland region, Dauphin sitting at -7 at this time. Clear conditions you have. High will be around 1 for that part of the province. Some light breeze would come with that mix of sun and clouds. In the Interlake region, we're looking at temperatures around -17 for Gimli and the surrounding areas. Partly cloudy conditions you are seeing for now. However, you should see a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. Highs will be near 0. And as mentioned earlier, we've been tracking that snow from the central part of the province all the way down to the Power Flin Flon heading north. We're looking at temperatures around -8 for Flin Flon and the Power at this time. Cloudy skies, light snow. Expect these cloudy conditions to stay with you throughout the day. High would stay near 0 for today. Up north in Thompson, -11, cloudy with light snow expected today. 5 centimeters in accumulation. The high will be around -1. The snow is going to be tapering off later tonight, leaving behind cloudy conditions. Then we'll see your temperatures deep to about -20. Further north, Churchill currently seeing light snow. Expect more snow today. The first batch, you get about 2 centimeters accumulation, and then tonight the snow continues, and additional 2 centimeters will be coming. The high will be around -18. However, the wind chill feels like -30 this morning. So, Curry, down south is more like sunny skies and then a mix of sun and clouds with mild temperatures, while up north we're seeing snow and windy conditions. But for Winnipeg right now, we are at -11, warming up to 1 degree.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Very quiet commute overall. We did get one call on the clear line from St. Vital import who usually has some kind of wild tip about something going on the roads, but he just said it's nice out. So he just wanted to call, let us know, because that's telling. Seems like it's actually a pretty quiet commute overall down here in the city. Might be a bit snowy up north, particularly around Gillam, and then kind of west on the other side of northern Manitoba and Lynn Lake. Some poor visibility and covered highway conditions is what's being reported on Manitoba 511. But if you see something going on, if you see a new pothole that's popped up, anything like that, give us a call on the CBC commuter line, the 204-788-3093. Also still to come, we do want to let you know about another story we've got after 8 o'clock today. We're going to speak with the owner of the Emerson Duty Free to hear about the unique challenges he faced yesterday as a business that sells goods right on the border and some of the confusion that he had to navigate as those tariffs took effect. That is all coming up here on Information Radio. But next on the show here, she's a Juno Award-winning singer who has shared the stage with music icons like Celine Dion and Etta James. And
we have about 35 people full-time on staff.
Oh, Canada, our home on a native land.
Well, as you just heard there, a couple of years ago, she made a one-word change to Canada's national anthem that sparked conversation across the country, and she's making her way to Winnipeg this Friday for her Songs and Stories tour. Julie Black is known as one of the 25 greatest Canadian singers ever by CBC Music and dubbed Canada's Queen of R&B soul by fans and industry leaders. And she joins us now. Hello there, Julie.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to have you with us. I'm excited to talk about your time here in Winnipeg coming up in your tour, but I know we're kind of in this moment right now. I know not long ago, it was a Winnipegger actually, Chantal Kreviazek. She also changed the words in the anthem to Only Us Command, of course, a much different message than what you were conveying when you did the anthem. But I'm curious, since that performance in Toronto 2 years ago, when you changed the lyrics of the national anthem from, our home.
It was in Utah, in fact. It was at the NBA All-Star
Okay,
game.
in Utah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yes.
What has the response been since you've done that?
Well, it's been incredible. I've always been a friend, an ally, and an accomplice to Indigenous folks. I have Indigenous friends, and so it's been many, many years that I've been standing in the gap. So my message and Chantal's message, totally different. I think it's pretty incredible that it was celebrated what she did, and for a lot of people, especially a lot of white Canada, they were not happy with what I did. So I think that Canada has a far, far way to come and a far, far way to go in realizing that there's a lot of truth and reconciliation still needed to happen.
Now we're in an era where, of course, now the anthem has become, a hot topic for a much different reason, of course, with these tariffs going on. And people are booing during the anthems. Canadians are booing during the American anthem. As someone who sang the anthems before, what do you think about that?
I think that it's gotten off the grid quite a bit. I think we still need to just honor what the anthem is supposed to do in solidarity, in a time of reverence, in setting the stage, especially for our high performance athletes to do their thing. But there's also freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So, I'm kind of like, I think that art imitates life, and music definitely tells us what time we're in. Whether it's James Brown saying "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." We're at a time where we're really writing the history as it's happening. So I think that everyone is entitled to express as long as you're not being offensive.
Have you ever been booed during a performance, whether it's an anthem or any other kind of context?
Never in life.
Oh, that's good.
Never in life. That's since I started singing when I was 6 years old, and right now I'm 47 years old, and there hasn't been a buh or a boo. That's no one's ever set their lips or set their face to boo Julie Black.
Well, I know for a fact you're not going to get booed at all when you're here in Winnipeg on Friday. You are back on tour now. It's your Songs and Stories tour. And it's been a 16-year hiatus. How does it feel to be back?
It feels amazing to move forward. It's interesting, there's no going back. There's no coming back. The whole come back, I'm back. Words have meaning. My late mom used to say, the power of life and death lie in the tongue. So everything you say, you have to be very, very mindful. Your word is your wand. And so it feels amazing to be able to be on stage because that's where I belong. That is especially in a time where people need hope, especially when I'm out there seeing people so proud to be made in Canada, immigrants being proud to be a part of the Canadian story. It's timely, and my gift is not for sale. So it's nice to be able to be appreciated.
And why did you want to go back on tour?
It's where I belong. Music is language. Music is healing. I know that I have quite the presence, and I'm a connector. I tattooed a bridge on my forearm after my mom passed away, and it just represents that. I have a great opportunity to help people. You're in fear. Let's try to find a little bit of faith. And so on. So it's timely.
What's your favorite part about touring in Canada in particular?
Meeting the people. I also do a morning show on Mondays on Global, and so a lot of people see me every Monday doing Monday Motivation, and I often encourage and inspire people to unpark your dreams. Fear a little less. Everything that you want is basically on the other side of fear, and so I'm walking my talk. That's the best part. Walk my talk.
And tell us about your new music. What's the inspiration behind it?
Well, for sure, my mom. Being able to do songs that I know she would appreciate, and I think that everyone, if we just take a moment, take pause for a second, we move so fast in life where we're rushing. I'm experiencing perimenopause right now. There's a symptom called the Russian woman, and it just means you slow down. You stop being a Russian woman. And so that's my music right now is really about presence and pause. I'm getting married for the first time in June. So, of course, love is in the air, and gratitude, plus fun. I'm a Jamaican descendant, so we're going to be dancing. There's a little reggae influence in there, of course, bringing the soul. And it's my best piece of work. And it needs to be my best piece of work because it's the longest I've been on Earth. So I have a lot more to say.
And a lot of change, like you said, marriage, perimenopause. How do you think those two particular things? I know they're two very different things, and don't often happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
How have those inspired your music and your life these days in particular?
Yeah, well, my fiance Valentine, we have an opportunity to really show people and couples that, what the statistics say about marriages ending during hormonal changes, our lives beginning during hormonal changes, because we have an opportunity to have radical communication and to share what's really happening in real time. Mental health is real at all stages in life, and so I'm happy that I have such an amplified voice, and I have the personality to be able to be bold and vulnerable and share. Hey, we get one life, people. Everyone listening, we have a measure of breath, and one day we're gonna have one more. And so let's really, treat it like a savings account and spend it wisely, And I say that with a smile on my face because I think we, as humans, we have this almost like this ego, like we're gonna go to sleep and we're guaranteed to wake up. We just buried a high school friend of mine 2 weeks ago, 48 years old. He went to sleep, didn't wake up, right? And so we just never know the second, minute, nor the hour. And so I'm just so excited. I'm excited to be in Winnipeg. I'm excited, it's the Peg City.
Woo!
Winnipeg, fun fact, no one knows this story, is how my television career started when I was discovered at the Winnipeg Junos in a lounge, at the gifting lounge, by the head of CTV at the time. And before you know it, I was touring with the Black Eyed Peas. This was 2003. I was touring with the Black Eyed Peas, and I was on television based on my personality, not based on a song. So here we are. There's something in the air in Winnipeg. Something in the air.
Some in the air. Well, does it feel then like you're kind of coming back to where it all started then?
100%. Full circle.
Well,
Full circle.
we're excited to have you back here, Julie, and thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us.
Thanks for having me. See you Friday.
Happy Friday. Oh, happy Friday. Oh, yeah, see you Friday. This Julie Black is on her Song and Stories tour. She plays at the Park Theatre on Friday, 7:30. Tickets can be purchased on ticketweb.ca. I know it kind of feels like Friday, especially with this music. This is Julie Black with 7 Day Fool.
The United States has been ripped off.
The stories that matter.
Canada will be responding
as they happen.
We must put Canada first.
At home and around the world.
We don't need the products that they have.
And what they mean to you. For news you can trust.
We're coming to you live.
Stay with CBC News.
I know that was only a teaser of 7 Day Fool. We'll play some more at 8:24. We'll play the whole song for you because, man, that's great. But we do want to get to this next interview because for small business owner, the impact tariff could have on her, on her is still unclear. We're talking about Amelia Barnes. She is the owner of Prana Vida Style in Winnipeg, a slow fashion, sustainable clothing store. And it's been around for 12 years, and she started out cutting fabric in her basement, but now she's concerned about what the future could look like. Amelia says 50% of her customers are American, but it's unclear how the de minimis exemption will affect her bottom line. I know that's a kind of a confusing concept, but right now, shipments under 800 would be exempt from tariffs or duties unless the U.S. Secretary of Commerce says otherwise. And Corinne Pullman is the executive vice president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and she spoke with CBC's host Faith Fundal about that kind of confusing topic yesterday.
It is quite important. A lot of businesses will probably send products to customers in the United States. If it's under that $800 limit, they don't have to pay any duties and taxes. That is still in place, as you just mentioned, for at least a little while until what we believe is the Customs Border Protection in the United States has the capacity to potentially clamp down. So it may take a few more weeks for them to get to that point to do that. But for many small businesses who send directly to consumers in the United States, it's a key piece for them. So it could potentially also cause quite a bit of grief once it is closed. However, again, we're doing everything we can to sort of make sure that the U.S. government is aware of the impacts it's going to have, not just on us, but on them.
Well, Amelia joins us now this morning over Zoom to talk about this uncertainty. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So how do you feel about these tariffs that are happening?
Well, it's all very confusing. I feel like every day I wake up and I check to see what's going on. It's something new. So it's all quite uncertain right now, especially with the $800 de minimis. Like, how long is the exception going to last? Is it going to last maybe, a few weeks, maybe a month or two? For me, it does really matter because my business often does pre-sales to produce because we are a smaller business and we'd want to make sure that we're not overproducing. To be more sustainable, we'll do a pre-sale, get orders, and then manufacture, and in a month or two ship out our orders. So it's really helpful for customers to know when they order if these tariffs are going to be in place or not. But that being said, I've been sharing updates through social media and my email list. And the response that I've been getting has been overwhelmingly positive, which really reassures me. Like, even my American customers have said that they would love to still continue supporting. And I've had other U.S. Customers reach out and say, I've never ordered from you before, but I'll be more likely to now. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's actually been surprising and interesting.
So
and
actually,
of course, Canadians always have my back. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little more reassured now, but it is very confusing. And who knows what's going to happen going forward.
So have you actually noticed an uptick or downtick in sales since these tariffs became a thing at all, or is it too early to say?
It's a little hard to say because right now we're kind of at an in-between point. So most of our winter collection is sold out. We do have some things left, but it's not like a wide amount of selection. But I have noticed some orders from new customers, so that's a good sign. And then next week is our summer collection pre-sale launch. And so that will be like the telling factor then, because that's when we'll have a wide onslaught of orders, hopefully a big amount of orders, and I'll be able to see who's ordering and what's happening. But yeah.
So I understand it's about 50% of your customers are American, and like we've heard from both sides of the border, there's going to be over time a long-term economic impact. And for some people, maybe they see clothing as a luxury item. Are you nervous at all that over time people are, it might be you might lose sales as the economy potentially contracts a little bit?
That is definitely a concern, and obviously, clothing, and especially the higher priced clothing. So my clothing is slow fashion. They tend to be more investment pieces. They last a really long time. They're really high quality, but we're competing against big box stores and, $10 t-shirts and things like that. It is hard to push through, but I think we do a pretty good job at it. And I feel like I have a really loyal customer base. And I also think that for a slow fashion small business, we are able to give the most competitive prices possible because I am selling direct to consumers, and I also have very low overhead, so I don't do any paid advertising. And I run the business out of my home, don't pay any rent for an office space or anything like that. So I'm able to and especially with pre-sales and that kind of method of manufacturing, I am able to give good prices and very fair prices. So I think the customers appreciate that, and they want to support local and Canadian, which is amazing, and I really appreciate.
Before I let you go here, is there any supports that you think could be helpful for you? If sales do drop from these tariffs from either the province or the federal government, that could be of use to you?
No, I'm not really sure. I haven't thought too much about that yet. But I think just having small businesses like interviewing, that obviously is great because maybe I'll connect with some new people through this interview, and maybe having a directory of small businesses that you can support. I'm sure there's things like that already out there, but having more of that is also great.
And actually, before I let you go here, we are asking this morning, it's kind of our question for listeners. What's your favorite local product, obviously, besides your own? Anything come to mind?
Oh my goodness, my favorite local. Okay, well, I did just buy some new jewelry from a local jewelry company, Sydney Rose, and I'm wearing the earrings and the necklace right now, and I'm very excited about it because I don't normally wear jewelry, but I actually love her minimalist style. So yeah, that's what I'm loving right now.
There we go. Well, Amelia, thanks for taking the time, and all the best as you kind of navigate this very confusing time for small businesses. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Amelia Barnes is the owner of Prana Vida Style. Well, 7:57 right now. Let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg-based tire manufacturer says Donald Trump's tariffs have already started to hurt. Evolution Wheel ramped up shipments to the U.S. To customers there before the tariffs hit. Founder Derek Hurd says the company now is going to have to eat those extra costs. And he says it's getting harder to go to work every day and look at his staff as they wonder what they're going to do. Winnipeggers can expect to pay more on their sewer and garbage bills this year. The city unveiling a set of rate hikes that could raise annual fees by hundreds of dollars for each household. The mayor says the increases are too high, and he'll work with other levels of government to find ways to lower rates. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. Got a call from Thomas on the commuter line. He says it's a beautiful, foggy morning. He's on Highway 16 driving into Winnipeg. He says it feels just magical with the sun coming and going, but visibility, just heads up, might not be ideal there. Coming up this next hour on the show, we're going to hear more a little bit about that, how that confusion is impacting the Emerson Duty Free, which does business right at the border, and how are these tariffs impacting the owner of that company? That's coming up after World Report. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa.
Q with Tom Power. You might know the Canadian comedian and actor Mae Martin from their stand-up or from their podcasts, but did you know they're also a songwriter? Mae Martin has just released their debut album, and they'll be here to tell you all about it and what it's like to stand on stage when no one's laughing. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
with Matt Galloway.
A lot more adults are getting diagnosed with ADHD, some of them after seeing videos about the disorder on social media. Many find the diagnosis useful, but experts have doubts about how many people it's actually helping. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. We are into the second day of the tariff war between Canada and the U.S. The two countries are still talking about ways to bring it to an end, but Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc is making no promises this morning. Here's what he told CBC's The Current.
How long we're in this circumstance, honest to God, I don't know. It's speculating with this American administration or trying to imagine the reasons why X, Y, or Z is happening, in my view, is just sort of negative energy.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expecting to speak to Donald Trump this morning. Both Ottawa and the provinces have imposed counter tariffs on U.S. goods. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
We can continue to discuss a way to frankly get these tariffs lifted.
Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc insists he is still regularly in talks with American officials, including U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
We want the free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico respected.
It is much the same with Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly.
I'll try to find off-ramps.
Joly, LeBlanc and other federal ministers have been traveling repeatedly to D.C. to prevent the U.S. from imposing tariffs in the first place, so far unsuccessfully.
They cannot come every 30 days saying, oh, there may be a trade war.
There have been other conversations too. A senior Ontario government source tells CBC News Lutnick spoke to Premier Doug Ford after Ford announced counter tariffs, a ban on American liquor sales, and a threat to cut off power. The source said Ford told Lutnick he's not backing down, and Lutnick himself pointed to the free trade agreement as a potential de-escalation, though nobody announced any next steps toward it. And Canadian leaders are focusing on their countermeasures.
And we're joining with other provinces to pull American booze,
including Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew.
Canadians and Manitobans are ready.
Meanwhile, a government source says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is hoping to speak with Donald Trump this morning, while Trudeau's office says the federal government will announce the details of an aid package for Canadians impacted by the trade war soon. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
And the U.S. president used last night's speech to a joint session of Congress to declare America is back.
The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again.
Donald Trump spent much of his hour and 40-minute speech praising his accomplishments. He also vowed more swift and unrelenting action, including tariffs. The CBC's Richard Madden is in Washington. And Richard, many Canadians are worried about the Canada-U.S. trade war. What did Trump's speech signal about tariffs?
Yeah, the president signaled he's not backing down and digging in on those punishing tariffs against his allies. Trump admits they may cause some economic pain, but insists his plan will bring back American manufacturing. Listen.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Now, the president's speech was part victory lap, touting his election win, ripping into critics, but it was also a rallying cry for his slim Republican majority in Congress to unite behind his vision and pass his agenda, whether it's tariffs, culture wars, dismantling government, or foreign affairs. Trump has moved at breakneck speed in his first 6 weeks in office, but behind the scenes, though, Republicans have reportedly been calling the White House, worried of the economic damage these tariffs would cause in their districts.
Richard, how are members of the Democratic Party reacting to Trump's speech?
So they face a unique challenge. Democrats are essentially leaderless and hold no power in Congress. So many of them held signs in protest. One congressman was booted from the chamber after repeatedly interrupting Trump's speech. Afterwards, Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin responded on behalf of the opposition, accusing the White House of taking a wrecking ball to government and warned Trump's tariffs will have severe economic consequences.
His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers.
Also worth noting, Slotkin acknowledged Americans want change, but she also urged her party to stop stoking outrage and instead focus on issues and take action.
Thank you, Richard.
Anytime, thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Leaders in Greenland are defying Donald Trump's assertion that it will become part of the U.S. The island is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. It has vast mineral wealth that the U.S. wants. Aja Semenitz is a Danish MP for Greenland.
Greenland never has been for sale, never will be for sale, and therefore I think it's very important to say that the future of Greenland is completely up to us, the people of Greenland.
During his speech in Congress last night, Trump reiterated his claim that the future of Greenland is with the United States. The president did acknowledge their right to self-determination, but then he said this.
We need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Greenland is holding parliamentary elections next week. Independence from Denmark has become a key issue, but opinion polls suggest there is little interest in joining the U.S. China's economic woes are also being aggravated by a trade war with the U.S. Leaders gathering for annual political meetings are focused on the country's stagnant economy. They're pledging to pump in billions of dollars. Yenna Lee has more from Beijing.
US President Donald Trump's tariffs have cast a long shadow over China's annual political meetings. An extra 20% duty on all Chinese goods since his return to the White House is a measure that targets exports, one of the only bright spots in China's economy. Despite this, Beijing is projecting confidence by announcing a growth target of around 5%, just like last year. Premier Li Qiang also emphasized that consumer spending is now a priority. In the streets of the capital, workers tell us they have high hopes for the stimulus measures announced by leaders. What concerns me the most is people's livelihoods, says catering industry employee Wang Li Hong. The overall economy hasn't quite recovered yet, and it seems that many shops are closing down. An IT industry worker who only wanted to be identified by his surname Li agrees. The economy needs to be a bit more open because right now it feels very challenging for businesses to operate. Low consumer spending, high youth unemployment, and a property crisis have created a deflationary spiral. Yenna Lee for CBC News, Beijing.
Florida's Attorney General is investigating how self-described misogynist Andrew Tate and his brother were able to enter the U.S. last week. The two men are facing several sexual assault charges in Romania. Dominic Velitis has more on the story.
Andrew, how are you? How are you, Andrew? Andrew and Tristan Tate arrived in Florida last week from Romania, where the brothers face rape and human trafficking charges. Florida has now launched a criminal investigation of its own into the pair, with the state's Attorney General, James Uthmeier, confirming on social media that search warrants and subpoenas have been issued. The Tate brothers were first arrested in Romania in December of 2022. Andrew, the eldest, is accused of rape and human trafficking, while Tristan is accused of the latter. Meanwhile, British police are still seeking Andrew Tate's extradition on separate charges of rape, human trafficking and tax evasion. The brothers, who strongly deny any wrongdoing, also face civil suits in the US and UK, where several women have accused them of coercion. Investigators in Florida will now determine if any of the Tate brothers' alleged crimes trigger the state's jurisdiction. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Now, more on the Trump administration's tariffs on Canadian goods. The Canadian Trucking Alliance says its industry has already been slowing down, and it fears cargo companies may end up a casualty of the tariff war. The CBC's Jacob Barker visited one freight company that relies on cross-border trade.
Customer service rep Courtney Mushinsky says it hasn't quite been business as usual at On Freight Logistics since the U.S.-Canada trade war began.
It's definitely taken a little bit longer for our drivers to cross, getting pulled in.
The company's president, Stephen Oneko Sr., says that along with muted demand from the U.S., its costs will also go up. Mexican tariffs could mean as much as $35,000 US will be added to the cost of a heavy truck.
It's going to be subject to a lot of scrutiny by us and by our financial people to make sure we're doing the right thing.
70% of goods transported across the border between Canada and the U.S. moves by truck. According to Stephen Leskowski of the Canadian Trucking Alliance, the market was already down.
There's already been layoffs in our industry. We are expecting more layoffs the longer these tariffs are applied.
Jacob Barker, CBC News, Tecumseh, Ontario.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, coming up this half hour on the show, we are delving into the impacts that these tariffs are having on Manitoba businesses. We're going to hear how a local tire shop is already feeling the weight of the 25% tariff. We're also going to head down to the border where the owner of the Emerson Duty Free had to navigate some unique challenges yesterday as those tariffs came into effect. We're going to hear from him shortly here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. At 8:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba business owners are welcoming tariff relief measures announced by the province yesterday. Businesses impacted by the U.S. tariffs will be able to defer paying some taxes. Tyler Birch, founder of Barnhammer Brewing in Winnipeg, says cash is already tight and being able to keep some of it right now would really help. As the south part of the province melts, in the north, it's winter road season. All of Manitoba's winter roads are now open. The final one, the winter road to Puckatawagan, opened on Friday, and several people headed out across the ice to Flin Flon and the Paw to stock up on supplies, while others got a chance to go the other way and visit Puckatawagan. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Abby Adiemi is in with a look at the weather. Hello.
Yeah, we're looking at a mix of sunshine and clouds today with temperatures ranging from below freezing in the north to slightly above freezing down south. Winnipeg at this point, minus 11. We're seeing the sun about to make its appearance. It's still mainly clear out there. Sunny starts would have the clouds will be joining the party late in the morning. It gets breezy at some point. We warm up to 1 degree later today, and then tonight a few clouds at first, then it turns mostly cloudy after midnight. Overall temperatures will warm up slightly this afternoon in the southern part of the province. However, the north is going to stay cold with that minus 28, 29, 30 wind chill we're seeing in Churchill. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at minus 11.
Abby, we're getting more emails about your favorite local Manitoba product. We're asking folks to email win@cbc.ca for a chance to win a ticket to the Love Local event coming up in a couple weeks. And it's getting wider. It started off with mostly just chocolate and booze and cheese, but now we're hearing about peanut butter, the Sunny Day peanut butter, manufactured in Winkler, made with Mexican peanuts. Also, that was from Joanne. And as well, we also heard from Diana, who also mentioned Cook's Creek kimchi. Which sounds pretty yummy.
I like kimchi.
I know. I love a good kimchi. Keep those emails coming. Win@cbc.ca. That's win@cbc.ca. Give us a subject line local and tell us about your favorite local product. You can win some tickets. As for your commute right now, it's been a very quiet commute overall. A little foggy on Highway 16, but a beautiful kind of fog, we heard from Thomas. If you see anything else going on out there, give us a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093. Well, buy Canadian. It's a mantra that's getting louder now that the U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on most goods coming from Canada. But what does that mean if your business is right on the border with the U.S.? Yesterday, the Manitoba government started pulling U.S. products from the liquor store shelves and offering tax deferrals to Manitoba businesses. And Simon Resch is the owner of the Emerson Duty Free on the Manitoba side of the Canada-U.S. border. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Corey. Thanks for having me.
So I just want to start actually with what you've witnessed the past couple of days being at the border. How busy was it yesterday and this morning as well?
Well, to be honest, not witnessing that much. It's a ghost town down here.
Really? And I understand, because I know we had a guest on yesterday saying it was really busy the month leading up to, well, yesterday, as people tried to get stuff over the border before the tariffs come into effect. But now, like, how ghost towny is it normal this time of year to see something like that? Like, when's the last time you saw it that ghost town-y?
Well, to be honest, like not even during COVID and the border closure. Of course, we had all kinds of trucks moving back and forth between Canada and the US. Trade wasn't impacted during the COVID border closures. What we're seeing now is definitely an anti-travel sentiment, at least, shifting the sentiment away from travel towards the United States. So that has an impact on southbound leisure travel. But normally at this border crossing here, we would see trucks lined up, dozens, sometimes by the hundreds, waiting to export from Manitoba into the United States. And so far this morning, it was the same thing yesterday. I've been here now for a couple of hours and I've counted 2 trucks leaving Manitoba. That is unprecedented. We have never seen that.
Wow. And so I imagine that translates into less sales for you, obviously, less people coming into the duty-free. But is there any, I know it's duty-free, but do these tariffs have any other impact on your business?
So far, they don't. It took quite a while for us to figure out whether or not the tariffs would impact sales from our business. Thankfully, yesterday afternoon at about 12:30 p.m., we got confirmation from US CBP that personal importations would not be affected by these tariffs. So our duty-free exemptions remain intact. That's obviously a great thing for us. Now we just need some customers to sell product to.
And in terms of the products you do sell, would counter tariffs or any of the countermeasures have any impacts on those as those kind of come into effect?
We're not entirely sure. There's a possibility. Of course, we sell products from the United States as well as from Canada, not nearly as much, but nonetheless, a bottle of Jack Daniels that typically moves quite well, or some other U.S. Beverage alcohol products, bourbon and beer. Whether or not Canadian counter tariffs would apply to products that we want to re-export back into the United States, we have not received any confirmation or any clarification from Canada or from Manitoba with respect to how that may impact us.
And what kind of conversations have you been having? I mean, I don't know how many customers came into your store yesterday or today so far, anything like that. But even leading up to this, what have people been saying? Have you, in terms of why they're buying what they're buying, and what's influencing them and their thoughts on the tariffs and the situation with the Canada and the U.S.
Well, definitely a focus on buying Canadian. And that's also, it's actually good for us. Our sales, by regulation, by law, must be made to people who are traveling into the United States. But our focus is distinctly Canadian. It's one of the reasons that we exist, is to promote Canada, Canadian products, and Canadian culture to people who are leaving the United States. And so we have a huge assortment, a huge range of Canadian product. And that's 100% where the focus is these days.
How concerned are you that these could impact you long term? Obviously, you said the things you sell aren't necessarily subject to the tariffs, but last couple of days you said it's been a ghost town. So, do you expect this low traffic to keep up in the long term if these tariffs keep in place? And how are you preparing for that?
Yeah. So, traffic has been impacted at the border. Obviously since COVID-19, August of 2024, so just at the end of summer last year, we saw a return to 2019 southbound traffic levels. So people leaving Manitoba, leaving Canada, and traveling into the United States. That was a massive disruption. It looks like we're in for another long haul in terms of impact to southbound travel patterns from Canada. But from our perspective, I think it's important to keep in mind that the United States will always be there. Donald Trump, the Trump administration, and this current situation between Canada and the United States, although it is very aggravating on this side of the border, it will not last forever. And the United States will be there long after the situation that we're in. And so from a long-term perspective, although we do expect this to be the situation for some time, we feel very strongly and very positively about what we have built together with the United States. And the fact that the U.S. is a friendly and open trade and travel partner for us Canadians. That's not going to go anywhere. And of course, we look forward to a time when we can get back to everybody feeling positive about that situation.
Well, Simon, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it, and all the best.
Thanks, Corey. Same to you.
Simon Resch is the owner of the Emerson Duty Free here in Manitoba.
A really thin computer led to a big PR problem.
Oh boy.
A seasonal candle fired up consumers with some questionable imagery. And that's not the correct URL printed on the packaging of a children's doll.
Uh-oh.
Recorded before a live audience in Toronto, Wicked Brand Fails of 2024 on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Time now is 8:20 here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, Winnipegger Derek Hurd can't go into work without feeling anxious. He owns Evolution Wheel, a tire shop down on Notre Dame. About 85% of what they say produces gets sent into the States. And although this trade war between Canada and the U.S. is only one day old, it's already weighing down on him. CBC's Alana Cole visited Evolution Wheels yesterday to check in on Derek.
We have about 35 people full-time on staff, and it's been harder and harder to come in and look at everybody in the eye every day, wondering what we're going to do and it's hard. Like you walk in and you go like, I have a plan and I have plan A, B, and C, but when people look at you and you're their source of income for paying bills and paying mortgages and putting kids in school, it's hard. So 100% of our product comes in as raw material. So we have raw sheets of steel come in, we cut those down, we make steel fab parts. We do robotic welding, we do powder coating, we do even rubber mixing. So we import all of our rubber ingredients from our suppliers. We mix the rubber here, we have chemists on staff, and we mold our own rubber. So literally everything comes in raw form, and we 100% fabricate or mix and mold our product here.
What went through your head when you heard word that Trump was going to move ahead with the tariffs on Canada?
It was expected. There's only so many times you can bluff before you have to actually follow through. So, we expected it to happen, but there's a difference between expecting something to happen and then it actually being in place. So, there's been a lot of uncertainty. So as a management team, we've been talking, we've been planning, we've been, running all the different scenarios through our heads, but until we actually have fine print or until we actually know what we can and can't do, nothing's real. So last night it became real. 2 nights ago, I woke up at 2 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. And this morning I woke up at 3 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. So yesterday I worked out, and this morning I laid in bed with depression. There's nothing you can do quickly and immediately. As a business owner, if you're going to react like that, you're probably going to make a mistake first step out. Leading up to this, we basically had the shop working as much overtime as possible, getting orders out the door, getting everything across the border, so that we can deliver orders to customers and also deal with that uncertainty. And so now that things are in place, we've got a little bit of a buffer to where we can make some good decisions, have a little bit of time to make some good decisions.
So you actually, in the last 4 weeks or so, you ramped up production to got stuff across the border for orders in an effort to kind of sell and get stuff to the people who buy from you, your customers, before tariffs came into place.
Yeah, it's been all hands on deck. Overtime, you want it, you name it, Saturdays, weekends, Sundays, night, whatever. People come here, work. If you can work, we're going to take the hours, and we're just going to try and get things out the door as much as we can. That worked. We shipped a ton, but we sold a ton too. So we're a growing company. So it's always that balance of, growth versus shipping, and we lost the battle. That we only gained a little bit because of how much we sold. So we still have all that backlog to get through and out the door that now we're going to pay higher prices on. So.
And what do you mean you're going to pay higher prices on?
Well, it's already sold to the customer. So we've already taken an order. We've already made the deal, either took payment or have a PO or whatever the case is. And so we're going to eat it. Like we have no choice, but we can't build that into our pricing.
So you're going to pay the tariff on the other side of the border. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, on all current orders, that's 100% what we have to do. We have to eat it. And any future orders, even though we're made here, we have competitors that are bringing in product to the U.S. from Sri Lanka, Indonesia, India, Thailand, and none of those countries are tariffs. So they don't have to increase their price. So for us to remain competitive, we have to keep our prices where they are. Otherwise, we'll just reduce our sales and not be able to sell the volume that we need to anyway. So we have to find a way to live in the current environment and just eat the cost.
That's Derek Hurd. He's the founder of Evolution Wheel in Winnipeg. Well, 8:25 right now. And as promised, I know we had R&B legend Julie Black on the show just after 7:30, but we only had time to play just a hint of her music. But of course, we got to play it because she's a legend. So here she is now with 7 Day Fool. The legendary Julie Black with 7 Day Fool. She's playing on Friday at the Park Theater after a 16-year touring hiatus.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? That's Marjorie Dowhouse. Yeah, Marjorie had her on the show earlier, and it was amazing.
Yeah, great interview. Her voice, it's just so rich. She's
so
an
rich.
R&B legend in this country.
I know, pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Turning to you, Marge, you're hosting Noon today, and what's the call-in going to be today?
Well, you know, when we think of getting things checked, we usually think of our eyesight, our heart, maybe we go to get a physical done with our doctor, but do we ever think about getting our hearing checked? Very important. We're going to have 2 audiologists join us here during the call-in segment of Radio Noon to take your questions about hearing, when you should get it checked, if there's any concerns that you have. So we're going to talk to you about getting those ears checked because they're very important.
Imagine a future where you can't listen to Julie Black.
Exactly. Or Infrared or Radio Noon or any of the programs here on CBC.
What we're saying is we both wear headphones over our ears for like 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Marjorie Dowhouse. You can catch her on Radio Noon this afternoon. That call-in starts at 12:35. Time now for your CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's -10. Partly sunny, beautiful sky out there this morning. We're headed to a high today of 1. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to speak with U.S. President Donald Trump today about America's tariff action. As this goes on, talks continue behind the scenes between major Canadian officials and U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Lutnick spoke last night with CBC's Katie Simpson on Capitol Hill.
Canada made us an excellent offer, and we're talking to the president.
What do you mean by offer? What do you mean excellent offer? What does that mean?
More work on the border.
Like, is any
more
specifics?
work on the border. No, lots of details. We're going through it together, and the president's thinking about that.
Canada is taking its case against the tariffs to the World Trade Organization. Now, Manitoba business owners are welcoming tariff relief measures announced by the province yesterday. Businesses impacted by the U.S. tariffs will be able to defer paying some taxes. Tyler Birch is the founder of Barnhammer Brewing in Winnipeg.
Cash is already pretty tight, and increasing our costs, even in any way, will have a bad effect. So being able to keep some of that cash right now to soften the blow would be really great. And I hope that the payback is gradual or deferred for a longer period of time.
Businesses can choose to defer payroll and retail sales tax payments for at least the next 3 months. Premier Rob Canoe says further supports may be coming as this trade war unfolds. A Winnipeg researcher says thousands of households could have trouble paying increased sewer and garbage rates. The city is proposing rate increases that add up to more than $300 for each household this year. That could increase to more than $1,000 by 2027. Niall Harney is a researcher at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives.
StatsCan data show that about 5.3% of homeowners in Winnipeg are in core housing need, which is about 10,000 households across the city. We're not saying that every single one of those households would need support, but we would expect that a few thousand households across the city would need support to deal with this increase.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says the rate increases city staff proposed are too high. He promises to work with the province and federal government to find ways to lower the fees. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich is blaming the NDP government for the loss of a license to drive tourists to see polar bears east of Churchill. Manitoba's wildlife branch rescinded the license for Dowdrich's Lazy Bear expeditions to operate 2 polar bear viewing vehicles in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. The wildlife branch says polar bear tourism is oversaturated and it's trying to protect the bears. Dowdrich and MLA Obby Khan are both running to be the next PC leader in Manitoba. Voting hasn't started in that race, but Dowdrich says his candidacy is behind the wildlife branch decision.
What's happening is because I'm leading in this race right now, I believe the bureaucracy is being weaponized by Wab Canoe against me.
Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushy dismissed the allegation of political interference. He says the department is doing its job. A man who pleaded guilty to abducting a teenage girl as she walked her dog in southern Manitoba has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Hercules Nicholas Chief forced the 16-year-old into his truck in an isolated area south of Landmark in 2019. The girl was in the truck for about 8 minutes before she was able to jump out and run for help when the vehicle slowed down. A sentencing decision says after the incident, the girl said she became an overwhelmingly anxious person and lost her sense of trust in people. It took years for police to identify Chief as the culprit until fingerprint evidence led to a break in the case. The judge noted Chief was exposed to alcohol and drugs in utero, one of several factors diminishing his responsibility for the crime. The winter road to Puckatawagan is open for the season after being delayed for 2 weeks. People like Vaughn Jorgensen used the opportunity to take the 4-hour drive to Flin Flon across the ice road to stock up on food and groceries.
Those are too expensive up north, so it's easier for us to access grub in Flin Flon, like meat, hamburger, chicken, pork chops, stuff like that. It's cheaper out there to meat products.
The winter roads are expected to remain open until the end of March. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
We have more products, and they're all food again. Heather, more local products people are emailing in about.
Okay.
Okay, so we get it. But they're unique ones that I know about. So there's butter made in Notre Dame de Lourdes, Notre Dame Creamery.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Marshmallow Factory on Selkirk makes chocolate-covered marshmallows. And then Shoal Lake Wild Rice. So you can get wild rice from right here in Manitoba.
Wow. Shoal Lake, Manitoba, or is that Shoal Lake in Northern Ontario?
Ooh, didn't double check that, but I'll wrap around. I'll loop around. Check that out.
I have one for you. Hillary Drexman Jewelry.
Oh, okay.
In the Exchange. Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. Keep those emails coming. win@cbc.ca. We're asking for your favorite local product. You could win tickets to the Love Local event in a couple weeks. Thanks to everyone who put together today's show. Chidi Akuma, Marcy Marcusa, Issa Kixon, Kalkadan Mulugeta, Abby Adiyemi, Kevin Ibatebo, Nelly Gonzalez, and Leif Larson. Abby, do you have weather in 10 seconds?
I'll tell you, a mix of sun and clouds in the southern part of the province with that milder condition, and then we're going to be seeing snowier conditions in the north with about 5 centimeters accumulation.
Thank you very much, Abby. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in this morning. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. The Current is next.